What's up, folks? JV Wins is here. Dogon SS is here. We have returned to kick some more flavor in your ear, courtesy of another edition of the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. Thanks to everybody out there who has been tuning in, hitting that subscribe button, leaving those comments, and hitting that like button on each of our videos. We certainly appreciate it. And as always, I like to say, we do not take for granted the value of your digital currency. As someone who does not make the effort to subscribe to 10% of the content that he runs across, I understand full well the value of making the effort to do that. It signifies that you find value in this content, enough value that you are willing to offer up your digital currency by subscribing to the channel. So, thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the channel thus far. And of course, thank you in advance to those who will do so in the future. It's JV Wins, Dogon SS. Once again, I also want to say you can now check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music for anyone who likes to get the audio version of what we do here. If you're not necessarily in position to check us out on YouTube, check us out on any of those platforms, just trying to be available in any and all places possible. So, yeah, man. Conscious Approach. This is how we like to do things. August the 5th. We hope everybody out there is having a great week. We have an interesting set of topics to kick around the campfire tonight. Going to be interesting to see what the community has to say about some of these subjects that we are talking about here. First thing that we are going to get into are interesting comments that were made by Wale in reference to the state of hip hop discourse. Wale, I don't know if Wale at this point qualifies as friend of the channel. I know we've talked about Wale before, but I don't know if we've done it enough to where he is an official friend of the channel. He might be on the fringe.
Fringe,
Yeah. So, fringe friend of the channel, Wale, recently offered up some thoughts about the state of hip hop discourse. We like to, occasionally talk about some interesting music topics, not necessarily about the music itself, but rather about the ecosystem around the music. And this particular time, Wale was offering up his thoughts on music discourse and his belief that it is oversaturated. And he compared it to other aspects of media to try to analogize how he feels about the fact that hip hop discourse has become oversaturated. So this says Wale thinks hip hop music discourse is oversaturated now. Wale recently sat down with Complex for a wide-ranging conversation about the state of hip-hop culture, his 15-year career, and a lot more. During the sit-down with Jordan Rose, he answered a question about how he feels engaging with music discourse today and how social media has changed it. So I'm going to skip through these quotes because I'm actually going to play a little snippet here from his interview. The article goes on to say, however, Wale's respect for streamers and other rap media was clear in the interview. Rather, he just wanted to make a point about the direction this type of general discourse is taking the art form in. The DMV artist thinks that all hip hop media should go into projects without expectations and especially without looking at other perspectives on them first. Meanwhile, with new music like fiery and loose freestyles coming out these days, plus a new album on the horizon, Wale has a lot to share in 2025. We can't wait to hear what's in store, and we'll see what other reflections and conversations this sparks when it comes to hip hop and discourse. So I might have to click out of this depending on if it opens up another tab, but let's find out first. Okay, cool. I don't have to click out of another tab. All right, so here is Wale talking about hip hop discourse being oversaturated.
They're so loud now. Like this, like it's like we're just in a room full of like a gazillion people's screaming and a million album reviews, 15 minutes out after albums out. A lot of hyperbole, man. Hyperbole is the irreparable damage to like discourse on anything, sports, football, basketball, like
for the sake of entertainment of it.
Yeah, and some people really only understand hyperbole. Like it's either a classic or it's the worst. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's cooked us a little bit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they've been dogging Kobe's legacy lately, like out of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like this that's the hyperbole thing. Like, man, he was just like what do you mean? What? Huh? Like, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Right.
and they do it a lot more with music because it's subjective. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that might be one of my most frustrating things about music or art in general, but especially music, black music.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, people will be like, "That's trash," just because they don't like the person who made it, or whatever, or they might, you know what I'm saying, or they at odds with some, you know what I'm
All right, there you go. So, shouts out for the Kobe reference. I appreciate that. And I also agree with what
Yeah, what the hell's
I,
going on
I
with
I
that?
agree with what is happening right now with Kobe talking the sports world. That's a video. That's a conversation for another video, I suppose. But yeah, so sports is a good reference point with which to make a comparison. Essentially, he said, there's no middle ground. Everything's either really good or everything is terrible. There's no nuance and there's no in between. And so he feels like the overabundance of voices in the space is contributing to the oversaturation. Of course, that is literally the textbook definition of oversaturation is when there's too much of it. And he says he didn't say this, but I'm inferring based upon his tone that he doesn't like it, that he doesn't think it's good, that there are so many chefs in the kitchen when it comes to how we talk about this stuff. So
Right.
what did you make of his comments?
I mean, yeah, it's true. But also when Wale got in the game, uh, it was oversaturated then, relatively speaking. Um, when he got in, that was during the Dat Piff era, where it was all kinds of music being dropped all over the place. Blogs were already inflated and out of control, and doing exactly what he's saying right now. So now, granted, those were blogs. It wasn't all over. It wasn't an actual social media app, or hell, maybe not even YouTube yet. But there was a whole industry of hip hop heads, and I say that in air quotes, that are just dropping. That's how I used to learn about new music, new projects, new artists, was through those blogs. But it was a ton of blogs, and they were all doing this hyperbolic stuff that he's talking about. So he came in at a time where I already felt like there was an oversaturation going on in hip hop. Um, and I feel as though he benefited from the same thing that he's talking about right now. The thing is that over the years is, of course, grown, um, relatively speaking, gotten out of control, and now hell, everybody damn is on the internet rapping and stuff. So, and there's all kinds of people that are giving their own hip hop takes based on the hyperbolic way that everything's done nowadays. So it's not just in music and in sports. It's with movies. It's with every TV series. If somebody has a take, most likely it's hot. So that's what's going on. What's happening? So I agree with him, but at the same time, old hip hop heads would have said the very same thing about Wale. You can ask them about Wale, and they'll be like, "Who the hell is that?" "Oh, that's the guy that made blah 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 blah." And then, huh? What? And they'll show them a picture, and they go, "Oh yeah, this guy." You know, he got hot when hip hop became trash. So the same thing could be said, in today's generation, and he would be relatively speaking a old head right now, compared to these young guys that are going. And yeah, man, the stuff is not really appealing, the overwhelming majority of it. But these young kids seem to love it, so let them have it. I say. I think that everybody, if they want to pick up a mic, let them go ahead and do it. And if that leads to what we're calling oversaturation, so be it. But the hot takes part of his argument, I do agree with that. I do feel as though that needs to go away, but it won't. So I think the best thing that anybody can do is just find the people that have reasonable takes, and there's people out there that do that as well. Not everybody's on these hype trains or whatever. So, point well taken, Wale. But I would just say that I was saying the same thing about him when he came out. So, but what are your thoughts on what Wale has to say about the oversaturation of hip hop, saying that and there's too much, there's too many people living on extremes, whether it comes to music being trash or a classic. What are your thoughts, man?
He is right about that. Entertainment discourse in general, and I'll lump sports into entertainment because it's all become matters of extremism. Something is either great or it's trash. A player is either elite or he's bad. I can't even fix my face to use the word elite in sports anymore because it's just been such an overused term. A quarterback is either, there's like 15, 20, 30 elite quarterbacks at any given time, which is so counterintuitive because elite has to be a small category. Mm-hmm. But the word gets thrown around so flippantly that if one is not classified as elite, then they must be garbage. So he's right in what he is saying. But I will also agree with you in saying, to a certain degree, he's benefited from this environment. And one of the things that I rail against when it comes to the way that he calls it hip hop discourse. So I'm just going to piggyback off of what he calls it. I tend to call it hip hop journalism, but I guess because you can't really, podcasts aren't really journalistic. So I guess, for lack of a better term, music discourse is probably a good default way to think about it. But one of the biggest issues that I have with hip hop discourse is there doesn't seem to be any critical way that we are actually looking at the music. Everything is either really, really good. My problem with it is that everything tends to get classified as really good. There's no such thing as bad. Therefore, it's difficult to really create a standard of what constitutes good and bad music because we're calling everything good. And, one of the issues with discourse that I have is because everyone is trying to gain favorability within the industry because you want to be able to rub elbows with the right people, there is a reticence on the part of a lot of people who have influential platforms to be critical because they're afraid of alienating people and ruining potential relationships and mutually beneficial business relationships, business partnerships. So I think what happens as a result of that is a reasonable critical lens with which to evaluate the music gets lost in the shuffle. And in turn, everything becomes good. And if it's not good, we just don't talk about it. Now, what Wale is talking about is everything is trash or is good. So he's talking about polar opposites and extremes. But I think that what I'm suggesting is two sides of the same coin, in which, in addition to the dichotomy of trash and not trash, there's also the dichotomy of everything is classic or we make no mention of it. So I think both of those things are happening concurrently. And I think that there is enough voices on either side of that dynamic that are contributing to said oversaturation. So I think across the board, there does need to be some more balance because, as I've said before, everything can't be great. Everything is not a classic. Mm-hmm. And to Wale's point, not everything is trash either. There's a lot of stuff that's good, average, in the middle, acceptable, okay, great for what it's meant or intended to be. And then you do have things that are legitimately trash, and you do have things that are legitimately classic. But right now, there does seem to be this weird environment of a fear of being critical in lieu of alienating people who are soft and get into their feelings too much because a person would dare be critical of the stuff that they do. So we're going to just call everything that everyone does classic. And then for the people who are on the other side of the aisle who don't necessarily care about that, it seems as though they're in a rush to call everything trash and say that nothing's good. And I do think that the truth is somewhere in the middle when it comes to that, in my opinion. And this is coming from someone who personally is not a fan of current hip hop music. I do think that most of it is not very good in terms of quality. But of course, I'm juxtaposing that to the to what my perception of quality is based upon what I grew up listening to. Tell that to somebody who's 18, 19, 20, 25, listening to what they're listening to today. They'll swear up and down that quality today is top notch. And I guess that's just a generational thing, and we'll have to agree to disagree. But in terms of the oversaturation of the discourse, he does have a point. I do agree, but I also, like you, believe that he benefited from that because I do think that there were times at points during his come up when someone would have labeled something that he did as great or classic or excellent or very good, when in actuality it may have just been okay. But of course, once again, me speaking on a very subjective issue, which is the interpretation of art and music. Maybe that's just my opinion, but I don't think that everything Wale was doing during his come up was great or excellent or classic or very good or whatever adjective you want to put in there to explain what was happening with respect to this particular dynamic that benefited him. So it goes both ways. It can work for you and it can work against you. And maybe now that he is 30 plus and he's probably seen as an old head in the game and he is in the process of unfortunately being aged out because hip hop is the most ageist form of music that there is in existence. They're quick to throw you out once you hit a certain age. He's probably seeing the writing on the wall and unmuting about this because now that he is over the hill, so to speak, it's starting to work against him. Whereas 10 years prior, the very same thing was working in his favor. So, um, you know, maybe he needs to learn how to get his Nas on and learn how to age gracefully. But if he can't figure that out, he'll continue to be victimized, quote unquote, by said oversaturation.
Well, that's what he needs to do. That what you just said is just make age appropriate music. And somebody that is actually a Wale fan, or just because they're out there, and they'll tell me that he's always been making age appropriate music, or always talking about. Hell, I wouldn't know, man. To be honest, because every time that I hear Wale, he's not making music that I think correlates to the image that he gives off. And so he gives off this image as somebody that's supposed to be, socially aware, about what's going on with the people. This take that he gave seemed socially aware, in depth, and stuff like that. So I anticipate bars like that. But whenever I do hear a Wale verse or whatever, he'll say stuff here and there, but it's not it's not good. So he's been a victim of a lot of this trash talk, which is probably why he doesn't like that. Because let's be honest, he doesn't meet the bar for classic. See, this is a personal take. He's not talking about the landscape of hip hop. He's talking about his own personal experience while going through this. It's oversaturated because, he's sitting here. I don't know if he's still on the major label, but he did all the politicking and brown nosing in order to be a part of MMG, which, in hindsight, well, it never made sense at the beginning. Like, what is he doing with Rick Ross? What the hell is that about?
It did seem like an odd match. Yeah.
It was a very, but at that point, Wale was just trying to do anything to be in the game. So Wale did whatever it took. And he was putting out music. It was getting a lot of steam as far as the industry is concerned, but they realized that all of this work that they were putting into making him seem like whatever, it didn't really pan out. The people that end up liking his music was a niche kind of thing. Not everybody was digging Wale music. I wanted to so bad. Back in the days when I was actually acquiring mixtapes and albums and stuff like that, I had my own mini discography of Wale, searching, trying to find something that I can actually listen to. So there's some people that I was a fan of as a person, and I was like, hey man, I'll give your music a try. And I was a fan of Wale the person. But then once I started hearing, these verses where he's saying a lot of stuff that I felt like went against his own personal moral code, I just gave up. I kind of figured that would happen as much. Him joining MMG, so he's gonna give a lot of no hands types verses. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right, whatever. But you know, as long as you balance it out, and I didn't feel like I was getting that balance from Wale. And at some point, I just felt as though he was just some industry guy. And so this take, to me, in my opinion, is no, he doesn't put out classic, types material. So he's gonna fall on the sword of it's trash, which honestly is debatable. It probably really is trash. So the only reason why I'm bagging on him like this is because I feel as though this guy didn't stand on 10 toes when it came to him being true to himself. It feels as though he really went to the industry direction, got chewed up and spit out, and now is crying foul. A decade later, saying that the industry is oversaturated and blase please, blase blase. Nah, bro, just make good music. And if you make good music, people gonna find you and hold you up and respect you. But if you're not making good music because you're trying to make music that people are doing now or whatever, yeah, bro, you're gonna get caught up in the wash. And I'm not gonna sit here and feel sorry for him or anybody else that's in that boat, not being true to themselves. Hell, I had some music on YouTube music. I'm sitting here listening. It was somebody I recently saved, but it was like some New York type rap or whatever. So I was just listening to random stuff, and I mentioned him a couple weeks ago or whatever. But Ransom, and I'm sitting here listening to this song. I don't know who this is. I thought it was Benny the Butcher, but the bars were too clean. No knock on Benny the Butcher, but the bars were too clean. It was grown man stuff. Benny, he'll say some grown man stuff and then get into coke rap. But this guy was, every bar was grown man stuff. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I listened, I was like, oh yeah, Ransom, of course. And then so now there's people that are listening to that. So Wale's 40, man. Make age appropriate music. And then people will call that a classic. And they won't call it trash. But be true to yourself, bro. But I feel as though he always struggled with that in his career. So I can't buy this.
Yeah, I don't know him, but I do hear what you're saying. I've always characterized him as an identity crisis rapper. That's always what I called him. Him and J. Cole, I've always called the both of them identity crisis rappers. Remember when, I don't know if you saw this, we never talked about it here, but a while back, LeBron, a lot of people, LeBron, in his typical narcissistic ways, says something on purpose so that people can be talking about him. And it was on his own show, and he said they got into the conversation around championships. Did you see this? And so
yeah.
he got into and so he basically said, we've made championships, we weight them too much in sports.
Yes.
Why do we talk about championships so much? Championships this, and it shouldn't be the end all to be all. Just because this guy has this many and this guy. And what basically, and I agree, I don't remember who I was watching saying this, but I agree 100%. What LeBron was doing in that moment was he was projecting how he feels about the way people talk about him.
Right.
And he was using the entire landscape of the way we do championship talk as the way to do it. Correct. Really what LeBron was doing in that moment was saying, I don't like the fact that people hold it against me that I don't have more championships than Jordan.
Yes.
That's what he was doing. Without saying it directly, what he was really talking about himself, and he was really saying the way that I don't like the way we do this championship thing because I feel like I should be viewed as greater than Mike, but I'm not because of the 6 championships versus the 4, and they do championships and they weight championships too much. So even though he was coding it around the entire landscape of sports and the weight of championships with the discussion, really what he was doing was talking about himself. And I only bring that up to say I agree with you from the standpoint that I do believe that Wale's feelings of hip hop being oversaturated in terms of its discourse, he's really projecting how hip hop discourse talks about him.
Yeah.
And so his perception of its oversaturation is, in my opinion, due to his level of dissatisfaction with how his music and his work is talked about.
Yeah.
and how he feels he's appreciated or lack thereof. And you know, to a certain extent, I believe some of that does have to do with his up and downness in terms of a lot of the subject matter inherent in his music. At least for me, me personally, I tend to be a bottom line guy. I kind of feel like, you know, if you claim to be about certain things in terms of how you see the world, it should be reflected in your music. And if you are, um, you know, hypocritical in terms of what you put through in your music versus what you talk about publicly, there's a cognitive dissonance that I can't get over. And so I
Correct.
can't really rock with you in terms of how I listen to your music. It's,
Exactly.
it's why I can't be a fan of Meek Mill, because you can't do too good to be true with Rick Ross, but then go to a Revolt conference talking about how the music industry profits off of ignorance. It's
Right.
like, okay, well, which is it? Like,
Hmm.
are you a part of making ignorant music, or are you aware enough to know that the music industry profits off of it? Therefore, you're not going to make it anymore.
Right.
And anybody who's a part of hip hop discourse pointing that out, saying that that's trash to do that, for example, I don't believe that that's evidence of oversaturation. I think that's evidence of a certain level of critical thinking that happens to work to your detriment. And of course, you don't like it, so you're going to unmute about it.
Hmm.
And so, you know, when it comes to Wale, I kind of feel like to a certain extent, he's done himself a bit of a disservice with this topsy turvy approach to, you know, being someone who is consciously socially aware, which I do believe him to be, but then also doing some of the surface level low hanging fruit in his music. And, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that throughout his association with MMG,
Hmm.
you know, you largely heard him on songs either talking about women or some of the more introspective songs. So you'd hear him on stuff like Poor Decisions with Rick Ross and Lupe Fiasco,
Hmm.
or there was another song on the vault. I think it was the second volume of MMG. Uh, I think it was called Fluorescent Ink, I think is the name of the song. So you'll hear him on songs like that, or you'll hear him on songs talking about women. But when it came to the street stuff, you know, Wale was inconspicuously absent. And I don't think that that's by mistake. I think it's because even they knew the timeline that he was on. But I
Hmm.
kind of feel like if you're on that timeline, maybe go a different route other than MMG. But
Right.
those are the kinds of decisions that you make when you're trying to be on in the industry, to your point. And I think what comes along with that is the potential for the discourse to reflect an inability to accurately understand where to place you. And so, from that standpoint, maybe he just doesn't appreciate the fact that he has not necessarily been able to garner the appropriate level of respect that he believes that he deserves. And so, he is going to pinpoint an oversaturation of the discourse as the reason for why that happens. But I don't hear other artists talking like that who are properly or accurately rated or appreciated because
Exactly.
they've been where they're supposed to be the entire time.
Exactly.
Like, I don't necessarily hear Nas talking about hip hop discourse being oversaturated
No.
because people know where to rate him.
Hmm.
And even people I don't like Drake, for example. I don't like Drake, but Drake knows who he is, and he's going to make the same stuff that he makes. And so he's not going to complain about hip hop discourse being oversaturated because from now until the end of time, whenever Drake makes his lady talk or his fake tough guy talk, people are going to know how to properly rate him because he's been that way for his entire career. So, you know, I think his point in principle, speaking on Wale, is correct. But I also think that his, you know, disillusionment with, you know, the state of the discourse overall is a direct reflection of his individual place within where he stands with it.
Yeah, man. And that's what and I agree. And that's why I said, I lump him in the category of oversaturation. I throw him in a barrel with all the other guys. He doesn't get an exemption from me because of this persona that he has. I listen to his music. I must not listen to it enough, some may say, or oh, he's got songs where he's really talking about some stuff. I mean, I doubt it. I mean, I've heard how he talks about women to know that I don't want to hear your album. Well, you going so now, so the songs that you decided to feature on, where you're talking about women in these crazy fashions, and so now you're gonna want to get on your album and hold them up and stuff. Like, I don't want to hear that. Which one is it?
That is what he does. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to hear that. That's why I'm not checking for your album, because what you're doing on these singles, it's a fine line. If he's trying to play the line of I'm trying to sound just like every other rapper, use the vernacular that all these other rappers use in order to infiltrate and inception them into liking me so I can give them what I really want on my actual albums, that's a fine line. And not everybody can do it. And the way that he did it, in my opinion, is not how you do it, because you turn people like me off. The only person that I know that has done this at an extremely high level is Kendrick. He is the only person that can talk low-key reckless on some songs and stuff, but at the same time, you know exactly where he's coming from and whatever. And that is he totes that line very well. And so, especially with his this beef situation that he had with Drake and his last album, where he's got bangers, and he's still saying stuff. So not everybody's been able to achieve that. And so if Wale was trying to, try to pull one like, hey y'all, I can, I'm a chameleon, I can do this over here with these guys, but I can still talk about some stuff. I don't want to hear that, because at this point I feel like you're playing me. So yeah, man, just make good music, and then people are going to find you and then rate you appropriately. But right now, if Wale is more of a meme of a rapper than an actual rapper, see, now there's people that I would say like Ransom, and that is a rapper's rapper. You say Wale is not a rapper's rapper. He's not. He doesn't fit in that category. Now, hot take, right? Hyperbole. He isn't, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So if I say, hey man, who's in your deck or whatever, if I'm talking to a person that I know that got bars, I'd be surprised if he listens to Wale. But if I talk to somebody that's got bars, you know what I'm saying, and I say, who do you listen to? And they listen to Conway, or they listen to Rock Marciano or somebody like that, then it's like, yeah, those guys are rappers. Of course, Raekwon or somebody like that. Yeah, those guys are rap. Ghostface. Wale, this guy tried to play the game too much, and therefore, in my opinion, played himself. So now somebody that's 40 years old talking about it, like you said, like his music isn't getting enough attention or whatever, and he feels it's because there's so many rappers out. No, it's because you weren't being yourself all these years. That's what
he feels like the discourse is too much. There's too many people who comment on it. That's how he feels.
Well,
but again, I don't know that he would be even saying that if said discourse was being positive towards him.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, it's the LeBron effect where really he's talking about himself.
Yeah. Sorry, Wale. Look, I didn't mean to turn this into a Wale bashing session, but this guy, to me, I feel as though the thing that I have is I feel as though he dropped the ball. And I told you that I was a fan of him, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, the whole Black Hippies little thing that they had going. Like I was real fond of all of that stuff when all of those guys were getting started. And I felt like Wale went left. So I was like, hey man, whatever. And so therefore my empathy with him went left. So hey man, just stay 10 toes and stand on what you about and make good music. So
yeah, I mean,
all that said, I'll still try to, if he came out with something recently, I'll try to listen to it to see if he's come around. But I highly doubt it. What you was gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that you'll never go wrong with just making what you want to make.
Yeah, man.
Just make what you want to make. There's a lot of these, like I said, most of this stuff I don't like, and most of these artists I don't care for. But one thing about it is, like it or love it, they're making what they want to make. The ones who aren't doing there's no coincidence that the artists who do the least amount of the complaining are the ones who are making what they want to make. As bad as it is or whatever, they're not really too snuffed over the way that their stuff is talked about because they're going to be accurately rated. Like, look, Sexy Red makes the, in my opinion, like Sexy Red is doing what she wants to do, and she has plenty of detractors. She has
Mhm.
plenty of detractors, but I don't know that when Sexy Red is sitting down talking to her, team, that she's
Sure.
complaining about the way people talk about her stuff. Like, I mean, she's rated where she ought to be given what she makes, and she takes it or leaves it because she's doing what she wants to do. Versus having somebody like Wale or Benzino's daughter. What's her name? Um,
Got her name.
Coi Leray, who seems to every other month complain about the music industry, and talk about how she'd be making music like Lauryn Hill if that's what people wanted to hear. No, maybe you just don't want to make that.
Right.
Because if that's who you want to be, you'd be making that and people would accept it for what it is.
Exactly.
So you need to figure out your identity crisis and make the kind of music that you want to make.
Exactly.
And then maybe you won't be so impacted by said oversaturation of hip hop discourse.
Well said.
But the principle behind those comments is correct because there are a lot of chefs in the kitchen. But at the same time, it's just very convenient that when people talk like that, it's typically because that ecosystem isn't necessarily in that moment in time benefiting them. And so that's when they'll unmute to talk about it.
Because it is benefiting some people.
Yeah, and they're not the ones complaining. So
Exactly.
hey man, it is what it is, man. Wale, good luck, bro. Hope you get it figured out. I'll be I'll sample, whatever whenever he drops his next thing. I always try to listen to it at least one time. Whether I make it all the way through is another subject, but I always try. All right, now this I do believe Erica Banks is a friend of the channel.
Yeah,
I do
totally.
believe she's a friend of the channel, and I think, as a matter of fact, I think the last time we talked about Erica Banks was also a BBL related topic, and so that is the place that she holds for us here on Conscious Approach. That seems to be the only contribution that she's making to the world at the moment.
Yeah, honestly,
is BBL talk. And so I found this to be very sad and unfortunate to read. And so hence I brought it up as a potential topic for tonight's stream. Carl Crawford is apparently, now this is Carl Crawford, who used to be a Major League Baseball player. And so I guess he's her manager or he's her label head. He's the CEO of the label that she signed to. And Carl Crawford was talking about how he paid for her first BBL surgery and how moving forward, because of the impact that BBLs have on female artists, is something that he's going to continue to do, I guess. So this says Carl Crawford admits he paid for Erica Banks' first BBL and resurfaced interview. Erica Banks has made plenty of headlines in recent months for her controversial cosmetic enhancements. Reportedly, she's had 2 BBLs. This is a procedure that involves extracting fat from areas of the body like the abdomen or thighs and transferring it to the buttocks. While many agree that she looks great, I don't know who those people are. Others think she might have gone overboard, leading to an unnatural looking outcome. Recently, a Carl Crawford interview with Real Life Productions from earlier this year resurfaced, in which he admits that he actually paid for Banks' first BBL. According to him, he saw it gave the FemC a major confidence boost, so he started including it in the budget when signing new artists.
brother.
Why Erica Banks? Let's see. So this goes into some of the comments, I think. Yeah. Why did he feel the need to let us know this? Like, are we supposed to look at him as a savior? One comment wonders. I'm glad Meg is no longer under this man. He could never. Another claims, referring to former 1501 signee Megan Thee Stallion. Banks has been transparent about the downsides that come along with BBLs. During an interview with Beehive ATL last August, for example, she revealed that recovery definitely wasn't easy for her. Quote, the healing process and going through it like the first day until you've healed is hell, she explained at the time. Probably the worst pain I've ever experienced in my whole life. The first day I passed out. The pain is just excruciating, because the inside of your body is like brutalized. It took a while. I probably didn't stop hurting all the way until like April, and I got my surgery in December. I just stopped hurting in April. So here's Mr. Crawford talking about adding BBLs to the budget of these artist deals.
Did you ever push her to be like a sex symbol, or is that where she wanted to go with it?
Yeah, she kind of when I met her, she was already wearing like little tight little clothes and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So they all wanted that. That was the era of sexy women rapping. So with that being said, yeah, I was just trying to get her, dolled up. Excuse me. Just so she can, look cute out there, have confidence, all that type of stuff. Well, we did a lot of artist development with
so when you do artist development, does that have to do with surgery and stuff like that, or is that?
Well, I'll tell you what. The first time, you know what I'm saying, it didn't have nothing to do with it. But we asked her, the first surgery she got, we helped her get that. You know what I'm saying, and I saw the confidence go out the roof. But that wasn't part of artist development. It was just what she wanted at the time. And I ain't gonna lie, when the first one, you know what I'm saying, when it happened. Yeah, she was turned up, man. You know what I'm saying? Everything was perfect, and I was like, oh wow, I'm gonna keep 20 bands to the side for any artist, any next girl artist that come. Yeah, I'm gonna just have that on the table, because getting the BBL seemed to bring a lot of confidence to these girls.
All right, so what did you think about that piece there? Him talking about keeping 20 grand to the side for future female artists.
That's crazy that artist development has now turned into artist body development. That's Erica Banks. I don't know one song of hers. I'm sure in the days of me, because when I first heard of her, it was on some ridiculous stuff. And so I was like, all right, well, let me just, click on a video. So I clicked on a video and she was doing stereotypical box rap. So, I wasn't moved by it. So, but I don't remember what the song was about. Or, I know what it was about, but I don't know what the bars, the beat. Like if you play it for me right now and they'll say, is this Erica Banks? I wouldn't be able to tell you. She is known more or less for her BBL body. And it's not even top tier.
Yeah, hers is one of the more atrocious, cartoonish examples of what goes on with this stuff.
In the movie Limitless, that's one of my favorite movies. When they was giving them the pill or whatever, and they said, it works better if you're already smart, and BBLs work better if you already have body. You can't help anybody, man. So if Erica Banks actually had the figure and then you plumped it up a little bit, so be it. But it looks as though, she didn't really have the frame to put it on there. And the reason why I go there with, and I don't, people will call it body shaming or whatever, but listen, man, this BBL stuff, this false sense of confidence and all of those other things that come along with it. I really don't care for it. I don't like it. But we are here in society. This is where things are right now, and this is how things are popping. So, of course, an ex-MLB player does an interview and says that, he's saving $20K for a female rapper just to shoot her up with these things and send her on her way so people can click on her stuff, not for her music, but for eye candy. And so there are men out there that have plastic fetishes and women that have plastic fetishes. So this is why Erica Banks is relevant. I mentioned to you before, we were talking about some other topic and I brought up Erica Banks because I saw a video of her recently where she was going on tour in strip clubs, though.
Yeah.
And she was doing tours for stripping, but calling it promoting for her album. But nobody wants to listen to your music. They would rather watch you, clap cheeks on stage. And so if I'm this guy, this Crawford guy, and I'm in the rap game for all the wrong reasons where, like he is, of course I would do this. This is money hand over fist. You can create an artist just honestly based on her figure, or her face or whatever. BBL her up. The music don't even have to be good. This stuff is below mid. People say, "Oh, that's mid," whatever. This is bottom of the barrel, bottom shelf stuff. At least Megan Thee Stallion had flows. I mean, the girl can rap her ass off. Whether other people are writing those lyrics, which of course, but she can rap.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, she can rap though. She's got good breath control. She has presence on the mic. These Erica Banks, she's just saying that she's slower repetitively, and there's no talent there. So all that stuff to say is that no, I don't stand behind this. I don't care for it, to be honest. But at the same time, I am not surprised. And I would say if I was a Crawford guy, I would say to him that that's a hell of a business model. Why not, ride those wheels until it fall off? Because right now the game is oversaturated. So, but if you could put you a nice BBL 304 out there and put a microphone in front of her, you might be able to. She might blow up and turn into a sexy red, and now you can flip that to Atlantic or any other record label and get a bag out of it. So it's not a bad business model, I would say. But what are your thoughts on this Carl Crawford guy saying that he dropped the bag for Erica Banks to have multiple BBLs and decided this is actually a business model for him? What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I don't really have much more to add to what you said. I pretty much agree with all of that. I just find it astounding how, when I believe that, stuff like this can't get any more pervasive. I come across stories like this and I gain a better understanding of just how pervasive it is. The fact that, because, I don't think that this is the only example that we can unearth of entertainment deals with cosmetic surgeries built into the budget of any particular performing artist or something like that. But the fact that it is built into the budget by his own words is something that I am not okay with, because first of all, it doesn't look good. It just looks bad. And I don't understand. I've given up trying to understand this stuff because, I kind of feel like I'm banging my head against the wall, engaging in an exercise in futility, trying to understand the psychology behind this. It's no different than trying to understand why dudes spend money on OnlyFans. I've given up because all the logic in the world can't help me grasp why a person would allocate their hard-earned money to that abomination of a platform. And if I can't wrap my mind around understanding that, then I'm certainly not going to be able to wrap my mind around understanding why things like BBLs have become so aggressively mainstream. And I merely just have to accept it as the state of affairs. I just thought it was interesting that, this guy keeps $20,000 aside for a female artist who wants to do something like this, as if it's almost incumbent upon a female hip hop artist to undergo these procedures, because otherwise there's no point in even trying to be an artist.
Correct.
Like, it just kind of seems like that's where we've gotten to with this. And if your examples are all the top female artists in the game, I guess I can't blame you for feeling like that, because they all follow the same blueprint. They all got plastic, fake, cartoonish looking bodies. Whether you want to talk about now, Meg, allegedly is not, at least in that area. I don't know about her face or whatever, but in terms of like, she hasn't done the BBL thing. But all of these other people, whether it's Cardi B or Nicki Minaj or, Erica Banks or the litany of the rest of these chicks who do this, they've all done it. So if you're
Mhm.
trying to copy that blueprint because you perceive that to be the route to success, I suppose I can't blame you. But how pervasive it's become is truly appalling. I think it's sad, albeit not surprising. And the point about you know this giving her confidence, like
Hmm.
what externally has given her the indication that doing that is what's going to give you more confidence. I feel like that's the kind of layer that we have to peel back when it comes to stuff like this. Like, what is it that you are consuming from a media messaging environmental standpoint on a regular basis, which has informed you that doing this is going to contribute to an increase in your confidence? Because clearly it's not a concept that we can accept across the board, because there's plenty of women in the world who don't do it and they have plenty of confidence. So what is it about what you're doing and the decisions that you make in your life which leads you to believe that doing this is going to give you more confidence? What is the external gratification that you're receiving that leads you to believe that by going under the knife in this manner you're going to receive more confidence? you know um I think it's sad and unfortunate, but it is what it is. She's inconsequential in any way because her music doesn't matter, therefore she does not matter. But the pervasive nature, the pervasive way that people are leaping to making these kinds of decisions on the grounds that they need to do these things in order to get more confidence in themselves is truly the unfortunate part.
Yeah, man. And I've said this before, and I'll say it here again, that we all know that men and women are different. All right. We all know some people. We all know that we're different. All right. Men are on one side of the spectrum. The women are the complete opposite. All right. In order to be the yin to the yang or the yang to the yin. All right. And so men are on a plug, on an outlet. Uh, they're the senders, and women being the actual socket, being the receivers. All right, but same can be seen for general areas and everything like that. So the same thing goes when it comes to selling of sex. So for men who are out of, they're not balanced when it comes to sexuality and stuff, they'll pay for sex. So like literally or through OnlyFans things or whatever, because sexually they're not balanced on the right spectrum. They're over sexualized. So women who are over sexualized generally don't spend money for whatever, they sell it. So women who are on the equivalent exchange of men buying it, women are the sellers. So Erica Banks, in this situation where she didn't have any confidence, she didn't have any confidence in her body because she is a person that was living on the spectrum of over sexualization, but she didn't have enough to sell. So once she got her BBL, that gave her the confidence in being a good seller of her sexual nature because she's been getting more buyers, which adds to her psychosis. So the over sexualization, so women take a high horse generally because they like to pride themselves on not buying sex like a man would. Well, you're not a man. Men have to buy it. You can't sit there on your high horse and be a seller as a woman. So that's what your thirst trap pictures. It's as innocent as that. The thirst trap pictures, the whatever things that you do in public, where you're, selling yourself sexually. You say, well, I just like these clothes. No, you like selling this image of yourself so you can get attention. And that attention that you're getting is a type of currency. You're selling yourself. And so everybody has this, a lot of people have this issue when it comes to this like we like to talk about consumerism and corporate way of things, where there's a sexualization that has been sold, over sexualization has been sold to everybody. And so it comes out in these various ways that men are now buyers, hand over fist buyers, and women are becoming sellers at an incredible rate. And so, of course, all female artists that are a part of this cabal industry are in this lustful nature where they have to sell themselves sexually. But most of them don't have bodies, all right? Because, they had to have some level of talent. See, some people, like Lil Wayne is short. Plies is short. I want to see the average height of a rapper. It's probably something like 5'6".
No, it's gotta be taller than that. It can't be
5'7", 5. I'll give you 5.
I would say like 5'8", 5'9".
Not even. These are short guys. These are short people. And so when you see a rapper that's over 6 feet, you go, oh, that's different. But most of these guys are small people. They had to find a way to make it out because basketball, football wasn't their thing. So they got into something. They used talent to use it towards making music or whatever. This is a theory of mine. So the same thing goes for women that they didn't have whatever, so they got more into music. They're more musically inclined. Whether I like Erica Banks' music or not, she probably always would tell you that she loved music and wanted to make it. But I really don't think she did. But that was her way of making it because of X, Y, Z or whatever. And so now, in order to put these women over the hump, you got to shoot them up with stuff. You saw how Nicki Minaj looked before surgeries. So it's the same thing. And so in order to sell it to people, they gotta cake them up. So hey man, it is what it is.
Yeah, I feel you, bro. I don't disagree with that, but there's also something culturally going on with that because I'm fairly certain, and I don't have any data to back this up. But I'm just going based off of my observation. Mm-hmm. That if you were to go and look in the pop music field, for example, or country music, there's plenty of women in country music. There's plenty of women making pop music. I feel pretty confident in saying that the ratio of women who have had BBLs in country music and pop music juxtaposed to the ratio of women who didn't do it in those genres is far less than the ratio of women in hip hop who did BBLs versus the women who didn't do BBLs in hip hop.
And hold on, and go, I'll caveat that. And because I'll caveat that because BBLs is our thing culturally, but now if you're talking about breast augmentation or nose, because that's what they do over there.
Yeah, but we're doing those too, though. So no, we are, bro. I'm telling you, look, I'm telling you, I would love. We need to do a follow up on this one because all of those women that I'm like, Nicki, she's had them all. Cardi B, she's done it all. She ain't do just the BBL. She also has the chest area done. Nicki has the chest area done. A lot of these chicks are doing all of them. The point that I'm bringing up is, let's just strip it. Let's just take it specific to the BBL thing. Okay. I don't disagree with you, but I do believe that there's a type of confidence affirmation that they're seeking through this kind of behavior. I don't believe that before Erica Banks got BBL, she wasn't getting male attention. I don't believe she was not getting male affirmation before BBLs. Did it change or get elevated to a certain level afterwards? Yeah, but I believe that the impetus for the decision to do it was due to her desire to get a greater amount of a certain type of attention based on that particular look.
Correct.
Because if it was just about getting more attention, period, or getting greater levels of affirmation, period, you would see more instances of this going on in other genres. But you don't see more instances of it going on in other genres because notions of confidence juxtaposed to attention and affirmation come in different forms than what that comes in the form of when we're talking about this particular kind of music, where there's a particular kind of look that sells. And that particular kind of look is in pursuit of a particular kind of attention. in my opinion, if any of that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and this is the last thing that I'll say, and I believe I've mentioned this on this channel before. I was having a conversation with my sister a while back, and she was on the phone with one of her friends, and they were talking about men. So my sister pulled me into the conversation because, to my sister's credit, she didn't want to do the thing that women do a lot, which is stupid, where you have conversations about men but don't involve men in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So she called me in to ask me for my opinion on some of the stuff that her friend was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And her friend was talking about how she's struggling in relationships because, she's not finding the kind of guy she's looking for. She's struggling, and she looks for this and she wants this, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the thing that she kept saying repeatedly was that she likes men who have ambition. And I asked her a question. I said, okay, well, what if it was a guy who was a regional manager at Walmart?
Mm-hmm.
Would you date that guy? And she said no. And I said, why? And she said, well, I just like a guy who has ambition. I want a guy who has ambition. And I said, well, if a guy is a regional manager at Walmart, he's climbing the Walmart ladder. He probably runs all the stores in that area, which, Walmarts these days, there can be 3 to 4 different stores in any particular district. So if a guy's an area manager, he's managing all of those stores. Now, it's Walmart, but in a vacuum, that is a form of ambition. He's climbing the Walmart ladder, and he's made it to the point where he's an area manager.
Mm-hmm.
So that is ambition. So why is that insufficient based upon your preferences? And she basically just wouldn't date the guy that I was describing, not because he wasn't ambitious, but because it was Walmart. And so my thing with her was, I was trying to help her to understand it isn't necessarily that you want a guy who's ambitious. You actually care about the type of ambition, because you're not running into guys who are, you're not running into men who are ambitious, but you're also not running into men who have the type of ambition that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You've gotten so centralized in your search that the specific type of ambition is something that you're prioritizing.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I bring that up is because stuff like this, with this BBL stuff, these women, in my opinion, are doing this not because they are devoid of attention or affirmation, but because they're looking for a certain type of frequency, a certain type of vibration.
Right.
And I think that that's a certain type of frequency and vibration that eventually leads to ruination, in my opinion. It's no secret why we're not talking about any of this woman's music. I Like You, I can only name one song that I've heard from this chick, and that's that Busted song that came out however many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't know what songs that she's made, because when it comes to music itself, she's inconsequential, because what her true art is sex. And so I kind of feel like when you embody that and that's what you got going on, there's only but so many different avenues that you're going to open up for yourself. And opportunities in business and art aren't one of them. So, good luck to her and all these other chicks who feel like they got to do this to get confidence. I do think that this is a cultural observation more than anything else. And I'm just not buying it. And I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think that reproductive reasons why sex is important. It's important for reproduction and a multitude of other reasons. But when sex gets bastardized, then we have over-sexualization, and then a problem ensues from there. Culturally, certain cultures like certain things. So, for instance, man, culturally in country music, for instance, it's having a fatty isn't necessary over there. Being a pop star, having a fatty isn't necessary.
Let me cut you off real quick. When I talk about cultural differences, I wasn't talking about race. So I just want to be clear. I'm just clarifying.
And what I'm saying is, country music aren't asking for fatties.
I don't know, man.
Pop music is an accent for fatties. But over here, where the music is predominantly in a type of area for reproductive things, these guys like big derrieres. That's just how it goes for reproduction. But it's out of control. It's bastardized so it's to the point that even plastic will stimulate his brain. But that person's in a different space. So culture. So it's gonna look different. It's gonna look different in hip hop than it does in other genres of stuff. It's just gonna look that way, and because hip hop has centered around stripper culture, in its music videos for decades, the ideal type of woman was stripper thick. And if Erica Banks looked a particular way like a stripper but didn't have the stripper thickness, because apparently she didn't, she had to go get surgeries for it, then she wanted to be stripper thick. And so yeah, culturally it looks like that over here on this side of the street, but the phenomenon reigns true against all, where over sexualization, because that whole Sydney Sweeney thing that's going on with her Good Genes commercial, with her saying all this other stuff, she's hypersexualized. She doesn't need a BBL to do it, but she's selling it. So everybody's out here doing it. Last thing I'll say, that Lil Tay girl, she just turned 18. Yeah, and it came out with OnlyFans and millions of dollars overnight. She don't need a BBL. So in different cultures, there's different things. But if there was a 18-year-old that was in our world, whatever that is, and then she would open the OnlyFans at 18, make the millions of dollars, and get a BBL tomorrow. It's just what it is over here for reproductive things. But the reproduction aspect that everybody's living on is out of control, is off balance, and overstimulated. So people are doing things to the max and the extreme. So surgeries and stuff, it looks no different. But that's why people are getting in the feet and other weird things, because they're just looking for the next kink or whatever to get off on. And so this, to me, this shows the problem that everybody's having, that men are having from buying it too much, and women are having or selling too much. But I think that, it looks like this in hip hop for a particular reason, and it looks like in whatever it looks like in other cultures for its own reason. But the bottom line is over-sexualization.
I hear all of that. Everybody likes booty, though. We are. I don't want to. This is the last thing I'll say. I know I said that last time. Everybody likes booty. We are at least one generation removed from this idea, this myth, that only certain cultures of people find that as an attractive thing when it comes to selling sex, buying sex, all of that stuff that you're talking about. Everybody likes booty. But I think that, I'm going to just say it plainly, I think the way certain, what's the right way to say this without being offensive? I think the way certain people go about maximizing their potential within that particular context, certain people are more likely than not to try to achieve that maximization via natural means, and versus other people who are more likely than not to achieve that maximization via artificial means, I guess is the most PC way that I can put it. Now, once again, I'm not trying to create this dichotomy racially, although there are some commonalities, but everybody likes booty. Everybody likes booty. Like, you can, I'm pretty sure if you did a Google search right now, or you went to World Star and you typed in Pawg, Pawg, you see nothing but these fair-skinned, exotic-looking women with those same kind of body types that you're talking about. I feel like we are slowly but surely at a point where everybody universally understands that that is an ideal form of attractiveness. But I do think that there is a means by which people choose to maximize that. Some people are more apt to do it artificially, and others are more apt to try to not do it artificially. So there you go.
I'm not going to drop this, and this is what I'm going to say. Your Pog situation. If that was mainstream, then you would see more people do that. But it's not.
What do you mean it's not though?
It's not mainstream. Sydney Sweeney is mainstream. Taylor Swift is mainstream. You know, Adele looked how she looked, and then she did what she did by natural means. But whatever, she lost the weight. There's a culturally, there's ways that everybody likes ass. Who doesn't like ass? All right?
That's all I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is, black guys love ass. We really do. But then you go in other communities, it might vary. Hey, they like a little boy, but they like boobies. It goes. And my thing is, I hear your point. All right, because our women are greatly desired. All right. So I hear your point where you're saying that everybody likes it, but my thing is that when it comes to the stereotypical hot woman, you get all of the stuff that we got 90210 Baywatch and all that other stuff. When it comes to that side of the aisle, that's their ideal form of beauty, and so from there everything gets in line with that. All right, and so ours is slightly different, and that's why ours goes in the direction that that goes in. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'll say about that.
That's fine. Yeah.
Because, but if Pog was Taylor Swift, if that was whoever in the 90s, Pamela Anderson, if that was that, then it'll be a different thing today.
I think it's evolved, though. I do think that we're closer to that point. Like, I think
it's getting there. You'll see the BBLs increase. Is my point.
Okay, that's fine. You might be right. You might be right, but I kind of feel like, based on what I've seen and based on what I've experienced, I don't know that that's necessarily true, because I kind of feel like I think it's a value set. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you might be right, but I do think that there is, based upon how you perceive the world and how you look at yourself juxtaposed to various standards of attractiveness, you either will be more likely to choose to go the BBL route, or you can be the one who's more likely to try to put the hard work in the gym. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. You could be right. You could be right. I'm not saying that you're wrong necessarily, but I think that the archetype that you're describing is something that's maybe 15, 20 years old. Like, at this point, we're close.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
At this point, we're being close. At this point, we're closer to being in the middle in terms of that kind of look being something that is universally regarded as attractive. Now, within that, there might be varying degrees where maybe you think this is too big, or you think this is too small, or whatever. But generally speaking, curves and thickness and all of that kind of stuff has become more centralized in terms of perceptions of attractiveness, from what I've seen and from what I've experienced. So obvious, I mean, if we want to use Hollywood as the barometer for a lot of that stuff, which I can see why you would take it there, I get that. But I'm giving a boots on the ground, like, in the streets perception observation. That's kind of where my vantage point is coming from, because I don't keep up enough with all of that Sydney Sweeney and all of that kind of stuff. Like, I hear what you're saying for sure, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm crazy, everything I'm saying might be insane, I get that, but I kind of feel like we're getting to a point where we're more in the middle with that than being apart.
Now that I agree with, because they be coming. See, they didn't used to come out with yam plates before they would come out with flipping what do you call that, not cocktail, what do you call it, what did they bring to the damn cookout? A green bean casserole. They'll come out with a green bean casserole, hips and ass. But now they're bringing yams, and they're saying, hey, look at my yams. I'm seeing a lot more yams lately in that community than I did previously. And the reason being is because we are moving more to the middle. All right. But my thing is we'll see the ramifications of all of this socialization for future generations. And then now we'll see if augmentation becomes more mainstream because they are just now getting to the point where they're in the middle. And at some point it'll get to the point to where it's like, hey, look, to hell with doing it the real way. Let me just go ahead and whoop it. But I agree with you, bro. This is not 1997. All right, I'm seeing way too many yams, more than I used to.
I'll say this, bro. I'll say this, man. Get yourself a gym membership, bro. Get yourself a gym membership, and I want you to just go to a gym one day and just do a head count of the amount of women in other communities who match the body type, and they don't have BBLs. I'm welcoming you to do that thought experiment for yourself, and you come back to me with the data that you come back to me with. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a lot or a ton, but I think it might be more than you realize. But I do hear you on one front, though, as things become more aggressively mainstream and normalized. Who knows what's going to happen? But I kind of took this off the rails a little bit. I do think a part of the decision to do something like that does have something to do with like value sets and the likelihood that a person is more likely to say, I'm gonna try and get that body the natural way versus trying to get that body the artificial way. And hey, man, there's definitely other communities who are doing it, man. I'm not gonna be up here misleading folks. I go to the gym very often, and there's a plethora of people who are outside of my community that you can look at and be like, that's not real.
Yeah,
but
Spanish wouldn't be going crazy with
they do, yes, they do, absolutely, they definitely do.
But have you seen Telemundo? No wonder.
But I also will say that in the real world, not in entertainment celebrity world, I also see a whole lot of them who are trying to get that body the natural way. One thing is for sure, I can tell you for sure, they don't desire to be thin, skinny, not thick, not have curves. You can tell the way that they're going about doing their business that their intent is to keep as much of their curves as possible and to try and do it au natural. But, I'm not trying to tell people how they should do and live their lives. But I'm just saying that, everybody likes booty. That's all I'll say.
That should be on the T-shirt, bro. That should be a slogan that we got. Everybody loves booty. And I agree.
You went to that when we went to that FSU tailgate a couple years ago. It was a whole lot of booty out there. So
I cannot confirm nor deny.
It was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Crazy. Hey, shouts out to Erica Banks and her smelly BBL.
Unbelievable.
Good luck to her. That was an interesting conversation. All right, and now we're going to talk about Machine Gun Kelly, who talked about turning down a role in the Sinners movie because he didn't want to use the N-word. So, he was offered a role in this Michael B. Jordan movie that made it was actually a successful movie. Him and Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler is the director. And Machine Gun Kelly was supposed to be in the movie. He said they approached him about it, but he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to say the N-word. He felt like it violated his morals to say the word. So he turned it down. So let me see here.
Please.
So this says Machine Gun Kelly claims he turned down a role in Sinners over refusal to say a racial slur. Machine Gun Kelly revealed that he turned down an audition for Ryan Coogler's vampire thriller Sinners after learning the role required him to say the N-word. The rapper and actor born Colson Baker shared the story during an appearance on the Pat McAfee show this week. While discussing his ambitions in film, Kelly explained why he chose not to audition for the project despite early interest from the production team. I was supposed to be in that. They had me set up to do the audition. It was for the vampire who comes in and eats the family. In the audition, he has to say the N-word, and I wouldn't do it. The comment earned him a fist bump from co-host Darius Butler, who praised the artist for his stance. Kelly said the part in question was the second vampire, believed to be the character Bert, a white supremacist turned vampire by Remick, played by Jack O'Connell. That role eventually went to Canadian actor Peter Dremanis. Sinners also stars Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, and Miles Caton. I'm not going to play that because it's a YouTube link, so I don't want to risk the copyright. While Kelly's decision took him out of the running, he made it clear that acting remains a serious pursuit. I have a lot of aspirations to be in movies. It just hasn't panned out that way. I'm on universal timing. The angels will put something in the works. Kelly has previously appeared in films such as The Dirt, Big Time Adolescence, and Taurus. Despite several near misses, he remains committed to finding the right roles. There's been plenty of movies that come out that I was like, I was supposed to be in that. He emphasized that he won't compromise personal values for screen time. I'd like to be in cinema while I still look young, he said, smiling. So that's pretty much the gist of that. Also, this video here on this page links to that full interview. And so I'd have to go through and find that particular piece where he's talking about not wanting to do the movie because he didn't want to use the slur. But what do you think about Mr. Machine Gun Kelly saying that he turned down being in Sinners because he didn't want to use the slur?
Nah, that's cap. That's not buying it. He auditioned for it. I do believe.
Oh, he said he didn't. He said he didn't audition for it.
Oh, he didn't audition.
He had him set up to do it, but he didn't audition because.
He didn't even do the audition because he saw the word and said that that's cap.
He didn't want to say the word.
Yeah, I'm not buying. I'm not buying that. And here's the thing. And then he said, "Oh, I've seen roles and be like, oh, I should have been in that." And it's like, look, bro, if you were good enough, you would be in these things. He can say whatever he wants. To me, that was whatever PR he wanted, so he can get that fist bump from whoever he got the fist bump from. He's not getting a fist bump from me. You don't get any kudos for that. And here's why. He also goes on to say that he's not going to compromise himself or his morals for a role. But listen, okay, this is the same guy. All right, this is the same guy that attended freak-offs. He attended freak-offs, and for Shine, so he can be a part of whatever, so he can get interviews at the Breakfast Club, and so he can, he's already sold himself. That's why he looks like MK Ultra victim in this video, in this image right here, because he's already sold himself to this industry. That moral and integrity has been gone years ago. So why not use it right here? I feel as though if he was really good at acting, he would have been in roles and we would have seen him. So for him trying to earn some little brownie points in the context of, hey guys, I didn't want to use a racial slur in acting because of whatever, I would have appreciated this more if he didn't want to play a white supremacist. But he would still play a white supremacist so long as he didn't have to use the N-word. That's how I'm taking this.
You can infer. I mean, I think that's a reasonable inference to make because he didn't make a distinction. So
he didn't make it. He didn't tell me that I didn't want to play a white supremacist. He told me he didn't want to say a slur.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm not offended by him not using the slur. I'm offended by him, whatever. I'm offended that he didn't take offense to being a white supremacist. So he found that okay to act through, but not use a word to act through because this is just Hollywood and I'm playing a role. So to me, I would have liked it better. He would have got a more stern fist bump from me if he said he didn't want to play a role of a white supremacist because that goes against his values. Not using a word or a slur that I know for damn sure he's used before while he was either freestyling with his buddies or just using it while somebody cut him off in traffic or he's playing a video game. I know he's used it in casually, colloquial, whatever kind of context before. So for him to say that, he's not whatever, I'm not buying it, and I don't give a damn because MGK, okay, he to me he was just an industry do boy. I'm not surprised that he's getting into acting right now. The rap game's washed up. All right, nobody's buying any of this stuff. That's why he had to switch to rock and roll or whatever the hell he was doing. I think he was transitioning a few years ago anyway. Like this guy's all over the place. So I don't buy anything that this guy says. The only thing that he does is try to be relevant every once in a while by doing something or saying something new or whatever. And to me, this is just his latest thing for him to get some level of empathy, I guess, from the masses, but not me. I'm not buying it. But what are your thoughts on what MGK had to say, saying that he turned down the role of Sinners because he refused to use that N-word? What are your thoughts, bro?
Initially, I was going to say, although I don't care personally, it doesn't move me. You know, I do believe that the world is a better place when there are people in it who live principled. And if one of his principles is an aversion to using that word, and so he stuck to his guns, I would say I can respect that. Even though I personally don't care, like I'm not gonna feel no type of way about you because you accepted a role where you're using the slur. I personally don't care. But I do believe that people should live principled existences. I think it's important for everyone to have a set of codes that they live by, and that they in turn also pass those sets of codes on to future generations and their own children, because people need to live principled in the world. So if those are one of his principles, I would respect that, because I do think more people should live a principled existence. That's originally what I was going to say, but you raise a good point that I didn't think of. He didn't exactly say I didn't want to play that particular character. He just focused on the word itself. Correct. And so from that standpoint, I really don't know where he stands, because I kind of feel like if you would play that particular kind of character, sans the use of the word, I personally don't see the difference. I can use my imagination,
right,
and imagine that while I'm watching this movie, you might use that word off screen somewhere. So just because you're not saying it on camera and it's not in the movie doesn't mean that I'm not going to infer, based upon the character that you're playing, that you're off somewhere off screen and the words just flying all over the place. So point well taken on that from you. I didn't think of that. That's actually a pretty valid point. But this word. So I get it. I get it. People feel some type of way about the word. It's a slur. It is derogatory. It's offensive. All that good stuff. Historically, it does have a meaning to it. So I understand how people can become charged, and that word can carry weight. Words do matter. I don't want to take this air out of the balloon in terms of people's reaction to that word. But in my opinion, and this is my opinion, I think in 2025 we've jumped the shark on being a bit too preoccupied with words, in my opinion. And here's what I mean specifically. So I think sometimes we irresponsibly conflate like racist attitudes and actual racism. I think we conflate that as people irresponsibly. It's one thing to be a person who looks at other cultures of people ignorantly and you feel some type of way and you have those biases. It's another thing to actually be in a position to practice things that can detrimentally hurt people. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think sometimes we get so caught up in finding the bad people because of the words that they're using that we ignore the bad people who are actually doing the bad things, even though they may not use the words.
Mm-hmm.
So, actually practicing this thing, the R word, actually practicing that involves being able to withhold access to resources, economics, education on the grounds of your position of power juxtaposed to those groups of people. So if you feel some type of way about them, you withhold access to all of those fundamental resources. So I believe that there's people in the world who are in those positions of influence who don't use that word because they find it unbecoming, but still bar access to certain resources and things because they feel some type of way about you. And I feel like we ignore those people who are doing the real bad in the world, and we pinpoint and highlight all the people who use a slur from time to time. And my whole thing is like we need to keep the main thing and focus on the real problems. So like we'll look at a guy like there's that NASCAR driver several years ago. They canceled the hell out of this dude. What's his name? This happened like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Larson, I think his name Kyle Larson. He's a NASCAR driver. They canceled the hell out of this guy because he was on a stream playing a video game and he used the N-word. And he used the version of the slur. No, not hard ER. He used the version of the slur ending in the A. I think he was playing
colloquial kind.
The colloquial kind, yeah. So he was I think he was playing video games and he had his headset on. And you know how these gamers, they can go a little crazy and get beside themselves and they start saying stuff. So the clip of him saying the word while playing video games went viral. The dude got canceled like crazy. He became persona non grata. Now, eventually he was able to bounce back and he's still in NASCAR. But I feel like we use so much energy pinpointing that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, you have people running corporations and you have people running movie studios. You have people running music labels. You have people running, tech firms, and you have people who are running real estate brokerages. You have people who are running insurance agencies, and they're in position to give opportunities to people and afford people access to resources and economics and education. And they'll never use the word a day in their life because they feel like it's unbecoming to use the word. And when you bump into them in public, they'll treat you with respect and decency in public because that's the right thing to do. Meanwhile, they're running their operation in such a way that they're gatekeeping certain people out of having access to those resources because they feel some type of way about affording those groups of people the same level of resources that their people have. And those people, to me, are the biggest bad guys in the world. Not the person who might use the N-word from time to time, but otherwise is not in any position to grant access to resources to people. And so that's just my personal take on this. I kind of feel like we get a little too preoccupied with these words sometimes. And again, I'm not trying to, it's weird. Like, I'm not trying to be somebody because I can hear somebody clipping this video or getting in the comments. I can hear it now. There'll be people who will get into the comments of this video and they'll say that I am, I'm okay with white people using the N-word, for example, or that I think it's permissible, or that I'm fine with everybody. There'll be people who do that because that's what the internet is. That's not what I'm saying. Rather, what I'm saying is I think we get a bit too preoccupied with who's using words rather than focusing on who's really messing stuff up out here. And you got a lot of people who are in positions of high influence who are doing the real life gatekeeping in critical ways that allow people to live good lives. And those are the people that we should be focusing on because they're operating themselves nefariously along the very same lines, albeit they're not using those words in public or in private for that matter. Because like I said, some of those people might feel some type of way about the word. And so even in private, they ain't using it. But to me, they're actually worse because they're keeping people out of certain things that people should be granted access to so that people can have more opportunities.
Agreed.
So, all of this stuff with these words, man, it is what it is. To me, I really don't care. I got well over these words a long time ago, especially when we started commodifying them and selling these words to other people anyway and started making money off of it. I stopped being preoccupied with who's using these words a long time ago. You got a lot of people out here who are really keeping people out of stuff because they're shutting doors in people's faces. And those people are doing it on the basis of culture and race and ethnicity. And those are the people who are the real bad guys out here, not somebody who accepts a role and use the word as a character.
Hey, well, I agree, sir. And I would also just add to it, at least personally speaking, these people that you say that, gatekeep and do these weird things. I mean, they are in such a position of influence that they do control narratives, and they control hot buttons and conversations that need to be talked about and discussed constantly. Right now, it's on self-drive. You don't have to tell, for instance, you don't have to tell a rapper to go into a studio and make an album about doing drugs, selling drugs to his people, and womenizing women. You don't have to sell him on that. It's already out. The programming has taken such an effect that right now rappers are just in reaction mode. So same thing goes for right now with this buzzword, the N word, where the focus and attention is just on the word or the person who used the word. Let's cancel that person instead of the system or whatever that kind of energy comes from. But how did they get channeled to that right now? When people are just doing that reaction, that's just the rapper going to the studio making that thing. Right now, this is already just the domino has fallen. But when did that domino begin, and who pushed that domino? And so back when civil rights was actually going on and there was actually, things happening, the culture in America was waiting to explode. Things had to be done, energy had to be shifted, and attention had to be shifted towards things. So I'm not saying it happened at civil rights. What I'm saying is that the attention of people here in America, Black people here in America, has been curated in a particular type of fashion where we react to certain stimuli and not others. And right now, we're at the point to where we can sit here and look at it and observe and go, why are y'all reacting to getting, poked by a cattle prod over here? All right. But then when you're just tossed in boiling water, you don't say a word. Both are terrible. But and so we can see that and point it out. But why are people just reacting to the cattle prod? Was because they've been told to, Pavlovian react to that. And so by the same people that you say that are doing all this other stuff allegedly, right? And so that's why, patterns of thought are what they are, how people are react. They're trained to know how to react. I was trained on how to react to that word. I was trained that it was offensive. I was trained on these things. So people just wait for it and they hop on that, but they weren't trained to find it offensive where you're being redlined out of your community, or, gentrification happening, or other forms of stuff where you're being marginalized as a people or being disenfranchised politically or something like that. They're not responding to those. So it's unfortunate, but to me, it's just a form of conditioning. Black people are in the state that they are in the United States, not by happenstance, not because, we're just lowly people who can't figure things out. To me, it's been systemic and contrived. And so by the same people that you said that people should be offended by today, so it's not all of them. Okay. Let me say that it's not all of them, but there's a particular group and class of people that want to see everybody messed up. And one of the ways that we got is by hanging on the words and hanging on the handouts and other things. So yeah, man, I agree with you, bro. I feel as though there's too much stock put into that word, and I was one of those people. And so I realized that my energy was being controlled by a mere, 2 syllables. And I said, no, never again. Somebody's not going to control make me crash out, lose my livelihood or whatever, because somebody used a word. It's not worth it. And I think, our people need to, grow up and out of that. It can still sting to a degree, I guess, but taking up all your time, wanting to cancel people. I mean, MGK should have been canceled a long time ago if he used it, I mean, he said he didn't even want to say the word, and I still canceled his ass. So yeah, man. So don't let these people off the hook, man. These weirdos. But yeah, point well taken, bro. I agree with you. I think there's bigger fish to fry out here. But you know, what else can I say? You know.
Yeah, he is nothing to me. I don't care. You know, there are definitely bigger fish to fry. We get a little too preoccupied with who's using certain words while also being complicit with the commodification of those same words to buyers of it worldwide, which is an aspect of it that is confusing to me and largely contributed to why I just eliminated the word from my vocabulary personally because it's too confusing. It's dumb. But yeah, I just don't care. Um, you know, there's a lot. There's so much going on. You know, there aren't enough people from our community who are in STEM sciences. There aren't enough people from our community who are working at the CDC. There aren't enough people from our community, or really just there aren't enough diverse representations of people in those various industry sectors. Also, running real estate brokerages, running financial services companies, um, being angel investors. You know, there's just not enough representation of a lot of these groups of people. And the reason for that is because they're being intentionally kept out of those places. And that to me is a greater form of using a slur to me than actually using a word. So I just don't care. We got to focus on the right stuff. So I can give two shits whether this kid says the word in the movie role or not. I just don't care.
Hey man, did they cancel what's his name? Quentin Tarantino yet? He loves to use that damn word.
Yeah, and that's another thing I was actually gonna bring that point up too. Like, so at least the director of this movie was a black guy. Like, what about all of those Quentin Tarantino movies where the word is just flying all over the place?
I mean, that dead Negro storage. I'll never get over that. you know that in Pulp Fiction when you're talking about the dead Negro. Yeah, man, he's sitting there.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know which one of the ones I can actually point out. Like, there's just so many of them, except for his last one is the only one where it wasn't all over the place. But between Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Django, like it's all over the place. So I don't get it. People pick and choose when to do this stuff, and it's all virtue signaling. It's all virtue signaling. So 100%. I really don't care. I am unmoved by who's using that word. I really don't care.
Yeah. So sorry, MGK. Nice try.
For real. Oh, and now we have two friends of the channel, Stephen A. Smith and Michelle Obama, two friends of the channel. Michelle Obama, she has her podcast. She's trying to become I think Michelle Obama is trying to do the Oprah route. I think she's trying to become a media mogul. And I think that her podcast is her initial foray into becoming a media mogul. And she's used her show to comment on her husband and her marriage at this point several times, marginalizing both in an effort to curate a name for herself as a media mogul. And now she is talking about media and sports media in particular. And she went at ESPN and Stephen A. Smith, saying that Stephen A. Smith acts like a housewife. And Stephen A. Smith responded
like a housewife. My bad. I'm spoiler alert, man.
Yeah, you gotta leave a little bit for the audience, bro. So this says Stephen A. Smith addresses Michelle Obama over ESPN criticism. Stephen A. Smith fired back at former First Lady Michelle Obama on his eponymous talk show after she compared his ESPN segments to the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Obama discussed the sports media landscape during a recent episode of her podcast, In My Opinion. I'm assuming that's what that stands for. The clip went viral on social media over the weekend, and now Smith has responded. From there, Smith took aim at Michelle and her husband, Barack. He complained about the way the two pressured voters into supporting Kamala Harris over Donald Trump in the last election. So I'm skipping all the quotes. Since the 2024 presidential election, Stephen A. Smith has toyed with the idea of joining the Democratic primary of 2028 while speaking with McVeigh Media President Mike McVeigh at the National Association of Black Journalists. I believe I don't know what that is, NAB. I don't know what NAB is. At the NAB show in Las Vegas in April, Smith confirmed that he has begun considering the possibility more seriously. So I believe this is going to show what Stephen A. Smith said, and then let me play Michelle first, and then I'll play Stephen A. Smith after that. So here's what Michelle said.
If I listen to ESPN for an hour, it's like watching The Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the same drama, and they're yelling at each other, and they don't get along. I mean, Stephen A. Smith, he's just like every other
he'd
talk
be a
show
great
host.
Real Housewife.
He would be,
right?
right?
It would be amazing.
So that's why I'm like, what's the difference? It's just, it's just sociological drama.
And now here was Stephen A. Smith's response.
Respectfully disagreed and still remain pretty salty about what you said about us. And I feel even more adamant about what your husband, Barack Obama, said when he talked to those men in Pittsburgh and implied that to not vote for Kamala is because we're engaging in some sort of misogyny. There are issues that matter to every American citizen. And to sort of blackmail us emotionally into trying to compel us to vote one way or another is part of what won Trump the election. Because that side of the aisle was able to look at the left and say, look at what they'll do to win. And y'all talking about him like he's worse. And in a lot of y'all eyes, he is worse.
Oh, was that a Stephen A. Smith mic drop? Is that
Brother. That's insane.
So I mean, what do you make of this exchange between these two individuals here? You got Michelle and calling him a housewife, and then Stephen A. Smith is not really addressing what she said, but just going galaxy brain on the way that they do politics.
She hit the nail on the head here. I've said this on this platform. I mean, we've done so many episodes, but I did relate NBA drama to that of housewives and stuff like that for men. I did do that. And for her to call him out by name, it was very much necessary for the culture. Now, mind you guys, I am a Michelle Obama, what do you want to call it? I don't know.
Detractor.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, detractor. Right. I don't stand behind anything she says. But this was comedy gold. I couldn't have said it any better myself. What ESPN has done, and Stephen A. Smith being the main Muppet on stage, just berating and being over the top, yelling in every segment. To me, it has done is it has made current sports commentary, unwatchable. I can't watch this stuff anymore. Whenever I sit there and I see Swag Who and Big Perk and all these guys just yelling for 3 hours straight, I say, at what point are we going to sit here and talk about actual sports? But it's just a whole bunch of, as you call it, gas bagging and yelling, moaning and stuff. and it's drama. It's men drama. So we don't talk about the sports anymore. We talk about all the stuff that's swirling around the sport. And I couldn't agree more. So what they have done is that the only thing that First Take is missing is somebody splashing a drink in somebody's face. Everything else is going on as far as housewife stuff is concerned. So Michelle Obama hit the nail on the head. Couldn't agree more. And Sass responded in such a sassy way. The only thing he didn't do in this segment was snap his fingers in a triangle over his head while saying all of this stuff. Him trying to really, I guess, stick it to her by saying that that's why that they lost the election and all this other stuff. Like, was that supposed to be the burn? He better watch himself, because much like how he likes to talk big cash money, that he's the big dog, a big head honcho at ESPN, and you don't want to cross him or there's going to be hell to pay. You might want to leave those Obamas alone. They're not just a Disney puppet like you are, bro. They're in the big leagues. And so he was best off leaving it like how he did. Because if he got any more granular with any of this stuff that he had to say, he might have to pay. But if he just leaves it as this, he'll continue to be able to do his housewife job next month. But what are your thoughts, man, on Michelle Obama calling out Stephen A. Smith and the whole damn ESPN for sitting up there acting like housewives for men? What are your thoughts, bro?
I thought that it was ironic that he, first of all, what he did was a redirect. So he didn't address what she said. He just went and went around what she said to talk about her and Barack Obama in politics.
Correct.
So that was a redirect. He didn't even address what she said. But having said that, within the context of his redirect, I found it very ironic that he spoke of the way that the Obamas essentially tried to emotionally blackmail black men into voting for Kamala Harris, when he routinely engages in some form of emotional blackmail whenever he's given his sports takes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm talking about more specifically is, I think, in my opinion, he often will opportunistically introduce race into whatever topic they're talking about. Even at points where I would say that it's even at points when, in my opinion, race doesn't really have a place in the discussion. It's kind of an innocuous, random tangent to go on to try to put it into the discussion so that you can continue to make yourself look like you're the champion for your people. That to me is a form of emotional blackmail, because what you're doing, in my opinion, is you are non-verbally implying that if you are black and you don't feel this way about this particular sports topic, then you're betraying the conversation, because as a black person, you should be thinking this way about this topic. I feel like that's what he does when he introduces race into damn near every sports take that he has.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching something last week on First Take. I think it was him, Louis Riddick, and Chris Russo. And I think they were talking about Terry McLaurin, because he's holding out. And basically it became Louis Riddick and Stephen A. Smith versus Chris Russo. And the undercurrent of that whole segment was, Chris Russo, you see it this way because you're white. And me and Louis see it this way, the proper way, the correct way, because we're black men. And this is how it feels to be a black man in this situation. And what Chris Russo was saying was, and I feel some type of way. I might need to fact check myself, because maybe it wasn't Terry McLaurin. I feel like they were talking about Terry McLaurin. But they were talking about a story in the NFL involving a player who was doing something that could be perceived as negative.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically became a racial conversation without it actually becoming one overtly. because Stephen A. Smith took it there saying, well, he's acting this way because he's a black man and blah, 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 blah. And so now you put Chris Russo in this awkward position of if he continues to be critical of the player, now because of this dichotomy that you put into the conversation, now Chris Russo, if he continues to be critical, is being somehow anti. Yeah. Now Chris Russo is in this weird compromised position of being anti-black if he continues to maintain his stance. And I feel like when viewers are watching those segments play out that way, a non-black viewer is saying, well, am I a bad person because I disagree and I'm not black? And I feel like black viewers are saying, should I feel the same way about this issue because I'm black? That to me is a quasi form of emotional blackmail when it comes to being a gas bag, giving sports takes. So I feel like for Stephen A. Smith to be critical of the Obamas by being emotional blackmailers in politics, my response is, well, it takes one to know one.
Exactly.
Because you routinely engage in emotional blackmail when you're giving your sports takes, in my opinion. Some of these sports takes are sports takes, bro. They're not about race. They're not about any of this stuff. You introduce that into those discussions because you somehow feel it's your obligation to do it, but only when it's opportunistic for you to do so. They do the same thing with Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark. Sometimes I feel like if a person says Angel Reese did this or that, it ain't because they hate women. It's because they genuinely feel within a sports context, Angel Reese does some stuff. That doesn't mean she doesn't like women. But some people, Ryan Clark, will take it there. Like, oh, there must be some sort of embedded bias that you have for you to have that kind of an opinion. That to me is a form of emotional blackmail in the sports world. So I guess we can agree that it goes on everywhere, not just in politics, because these guys do the same stuff. And they definitely traffic in a lot of that stuff on that show specifically. Speaking of First Take. So, yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Michelle Obama on this, as painful as it may be for me to do so. I hear where she's coming from, and I do agree. Personally, I think all of these gas bags need to get out of here. But apparently, based on ratings, that's what people want to watch.
I mean, Stephen A. I agree, bro. Stephen A. Serves a purpose. I mean, all of those guys. Now, mind you, in that last conversation that we were having, or we were talking about what people are told to worry about. So for instance, this example that you brought up, where it's like, hey, if you're a black viewer and you're watching these black guys sitting here, the black guys having this conversation on air. So this ain't in a bar. This ain't in a barbershop where that kind of conversation is. I mean, they're having this discussion on air. And then so a black person is left to feel like either, yeah, I agree with them. You know what I'm saying? You don't know how tough it is to be out here negotiating as a black man. Or somebody that just saw it as a sports thing is like, well, they're not trying to pay this guy, this kind of money, all of that guaranteed. If they're trying to build a roster elsewhere. Negotiations always happen with athletes. No, you shouldn't feel that way. You should feel as though he's being marginalized, because if he was a white athlete, so you'll sit there and as a black person, you go, damn, hey, you're right. Enough of that.
Yes.
Yeah, enough of that going on everywhere.
Yes.
Then black people start to be concerned about stupid stuff. Then they start to be worried about a word, being used by an actor in a movie. Because Negroes would cancel somebody over there, And so, point well taken, bro, is that, and that's what Stephen A. Smith's job is. Stephen A. Smith's job is to be a race baiter. And that's why I didn't want them to have NFL Network. That's why I didn't want them to touch my red zone, because they're going to put some racially charged in the octo box.
I'm afraid that they're going to bastardize NBA. Because they're putting inside the NBA is going to be ESPN.
Oh, that's right. They're buying everything up.
My concern is that they're just going to do that. They're going to bring all of this socio-political commentary over into inside the NBA. in capacities in which it's not otherwise warranted.
Exactly.
Not to say, like, I'm not the person who's like, get rid of social commentary in my sports. If it's warranted, fine, let's have the conversation. But at points in which you just kind of conveniently throw it into the conversation all the time in order to service your altruistic need of being this champion for your people, like, it's a bit much. And yeah, like, in my opinion, I do look at that as a form of emotional blackmail, because sometimes I do think some of these guys are not acting in the best interest of the team or their careers by doing what they do. And does that make me somehow in the wrong for feeling that way? Because I should think the way you feel because you're bringing race into the conversation and making it not about sports. So it's ridiculous, but that's where we've come to with specifically the shows on that network. If I'm being honest, because I don't really see it on other networks. So it's the shows on that network, and I'm just like, well, fancy for you to call her out for being an emotional blackmailer or Barack Obama when you're doing the same thing just in a different context.
I agree, bro, and that's what I'm saying. At this point, it's not coincidental anymore. You know, to me, it's obvious that this is what Disney wants. This is what ESPN wants. Ryan Clark went off script by thinking he can talk like he's on ESPN on his own platform. You can't talk like that by yourself, because guess what? There's nobody there to check what you're saying. But you can talk that mess over here in this controlled environment where everybody's watching it. And we want you to talk in a particular way. So just like how they used to do with these fake debates back in the day, where one person had to be on one side of the aisle and naturally the other person had to be on the opposite, they give these guys these takes to talk about this racial stuff. They do. They're not going off the cuff because they want to help their people. They're being told to do so. So Stephen A. Smith, Ryan Clark, Swagoo, all those guys are playing a role as concerned black men looking out for the marginalized black millionaire athlete. And it's bogus. And what they're doing is they're turning our sports into their political mess. We love sports, man. Everybody loves sports. This is where men come to get along. And they're driving the divide even in sports.
By claiming to, and it's so funny too, because by bringing these conversations up, they will say that they're trying to bridge the gap.
Right.
That's the ironic thing about it. But
Which
really, it is. You're just creating a larger gap.
I couldn't imagine being a white man watching.
Yeah, because now people who feel differently about it are going to feel some type of way about the fact that they're seemingly not allowed to feel differently about it. It reminds me of the thing that you mentioned once, where I think you were talking about college football. I think it was college football, and you said that there's like the white play-by-play guy, and the white play-by-play guy has to like tiptoe his way around how he's talking about players because he has to be concerned with whether he says something that is otherwise sportsy, but is now going to be misconstrued as some sort of a racial slight or something. So as a result, he can't call the game the way he wants to, which contributes to it being a horrible product to watch. And you're like, I hate that because I can't even watch these games now because of the way that these guys tiptoe around stuff.
Right. They can't be critical of the coach if he's trash. If it's a black coach, they can't say that, oh, you know what I'm saying, this guy sucks. Like, you know, they should have got rid of this guy 2 years ago. You can't say that. You're a racist. If this quarterback Anthony Richardson can't see the field, only good for running around and stuff like that. If you say he's just a glorified running back, you're racist. So you can't be honest, and you can't give honest takes as a white man right now on sports.
Bro, the only way that you can get away with it is if we're talking about a person who is beyond the pale. Like, you have to be Deshaun Watson. That's the only way that
you have to be canceled as a human in order to give an honest take. Yeah, because right now, if I sat on ESPN as a white man and I say Anthony Richardson sucks, he should be playing tight end or running back or receiver. Ryan Clark will call me a racist.
Yeah, he would. Yeah.
And he'll go through this whole soliloquy about how black athletes like him aren't given a fair shot when guys like Will Levis are running around the NFL.
Or he'll psychoanalyze your comments so that he can he'll psychoanalyze your comments to show how the reason why you said that is because of some preconceived racial bias that you have. That's the way he'll do it.
Listen. White people, I know they're tired of ESPN. I don't know how they watch it, if they do at all. But if I was a white man, it's hard to watch as a black guy because I'm just trying to watch sports and I go, well, here they go. I'm not watching it. I'll turn it off. So I can only imagine if I'm a white man, well, I'm just being made to feel guilty yet again. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, man, I actually have black friends. Okay. I'm actually cool with my coworkers. You know what I'm saying? No, I married a white woman and have white kids, and I want my kids to have, whatever. But I don't have a problem with black people. You know what I'm saying? And I think Anthony Richardson sucks. And, but he's made to feel like a racist. So to me, what ESPN has done is it has taken sports and, as Michelle Obama mentioned, dramatized it. And now they are talking about everything but the sport itself. They're talking about what this is going to do for the Cowboys' legacy. They're still talking about the Cowboys. What this is going to do for this, what they're going to do for that. LeBron did this. It's like, LeBron's not even in the playoffs anymore, but we're still talking about him and versus Jordan.
Bro, they did a segment analyzing whether it's wrong that LeBron didn't attend Luka's press conference when he signed his max extension.
Come on, man.
And I'm just like, bro, look, I'm not a LeBron guy, but y'all really need that much. Like, y'all really need, like, y'all need to hire some new creatives to come up in that room and come up with segments of talking points that y'all got to do stuff like this.
Oh,
it's ridiculous, man.
It's brain rot.
What happens with those kinds of segments is it dovetails into these, like, larger, either personal or societal observations when it otherwise shouldn't even go that far. Like, we don't need to psychoanalyze LeBron on a worldly level because he didn't show up because he wasn't at Luka's press conference. Like, it's not that serious. It's not. But that's what happens. That's what's going to happen with segments like that.
Yeah, I mean, he should have showed up to Wade's Hall of Fame inauguration. He should have did that. He should have went to Kobe's funeral. But you don't have to go to Luka's press conference. I was like, what the hell is that? Hey, and last thing I'll say is, and that's why I don't like Stephen. This is why I don't like Stephen A. Smith, because what he does is he is making brain rot for adult men, and constantly always talking about the same 3 topics every day for years on end. What it does is it atrophies the brain. And anybody out there that is actually watching sports content and calls themselves a sports aficionado, but the only sports intake that they get is from ESPN, they don't know shart about sports. But they know everything about the drama. And so, yeah, they've been selling men drama for the last 2 decades in sports. And I've been over it. I don't watch any of these shows anymore. And so we'll see what they do with they might let Red Zone rock out for the first year, just on GP, just so they don't spoil the bag.
Is that a done deal? Is that a done deal?
I don't know if it's coming up this season, but I think it's a done deal. They have been acquired. NFL Network has been acquired by ESPN.
By ESPN? Oh,
yes.
Man.
Right. So it has. So I don't know if it's going to be this season or what. I don't know if it's going to be like how the NBA did their deal with inside the NBA, and then we're going to have to wait a year. I don't know. But all I know, and everybody else, is that they don't want ESPN to put their filthy paws on a good product. And last thing I'll say is that NFL Network, Scott Hansen, Red Zone, Octobox, Decabox, Black, White, Indian, Hispanic, young, old,
man, woman,
child. Everybody comes together for those 7 hours and enjoys sports. What ESPN does is they get in the middle of that and bring in these problems and divides sports fans. Not versus team. They're bringing in race, social class, and a whole bunch of other garbage that people that are watching Red Zone don't even think about.
Most people weren't thinking about it before they started doing it.
Exactly. So that's my problem with ESPN. That's my problem with Stephen A. Smith. And so Michelle Obama scratched the surface calling him a housewife, but that's what he does. That's what he does. He brings drama into what otherwise all men would just sit down and shake hands and agree on life. Whenever I go to a sports game and I'm in attendance with all of these multicultural people and our team scores, everybody's giving everybody high fives. Everybody's giving people hugs. Sports unifies. ESPN divides. So, yes, ESPN can kick rocks. Stephen A. Smith can kick rocks, man. I can't stand this man. Honestly.
Yeah, I think it's funny that he did. I think it's funny that he called her out. He called both her and Barack out for doing that. And I feel like he does that same thing. I feel like when they're doing that, see, and I haven't thought First Take to me hasn't been good since Kellerman was there.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to do that crap. There would be days where it would be Stephen A. Smith and another black person, and the conversation just became Stephen A. Smith and black, analysts versus Max Kellerman. That was the undercurrent of the segment, just because they had different perspectives, and Kellerman was never. Some would argue Kellerman goes overboard in terms of trying to be a racial unifier. Like Kellerman's one of those people who's more of an ally. That's why T.O. unmuted and says sometimes he feels like Max Kellerman. That's why he unmuted and said that's why he said he feels like Max Kellerman is more black than Stephen A. Smith sometimes,
which is true.
But they would get into these tips, and it was so uncomfortable to watch because it's like Kellerman didn't do anything wrong here, and it's being insinuated subtly that Kellerman has the wrong take here because he's white.
Yep.
And that's so uncomfortable to watch. It really is. And they used to do that stuff with him. And so now from time to time they do it. They still do it. Like they did it again last week. And I was just like, like who likes this? Who is enjoying watching this?
I don't know. I honestly don't know who watches it. Besides those people that are just on default and just want to have it on as background stuff. Like honestly, I don't know who watches and enjoys these takes. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
There's two words that I can't even say with a straight face anymore because they killed those. That network killed those two words for me. And that's elite and legacy. I can't use either of those words without like almost throwing up in my mouth because those are two of the most overused words courtesy of that network in sports. The two of the most overused words.
Unbelievable. Hey, great job, Michelle. Even though you know what I'm saying? Whatever with your show. That was a good take, and I agree 100%.
I was just about to say, shouts out to Michelle for one.
That's the first time and last time, Michelle. Don't get used to it.
And next up, we are going to discuss Ari Lennox, who has some choice words for Martin. Martin, 80s and early 90s babies are going to know Martin. I don't know how you can be born. If you're a Gen Xer or a millennial, I feel like you got to know what Martin is.
Of course.
A classic show from the early 90s, back when Martin Lawrence was actually funny. And, it often gets debated amongst the funniest television shows ever. But not according to Ari Lennox, who always felt some type of way about Martin because he felt as though the jokes that were aimed towards Pam, the character Pam, played by Tashina Arnold, they had undertones of colorism, or rather they invoked themes of colorism. And so she wasn't necessarily a fan of that. So this says Ari Lennox talks Martin's jokes about Tashina Arnold and colorism. Ari Lennox recently shared her thoughts on the jokes aimed at Pam. on the sitcom Martin. The Grammy-winning singer said, "The thing that pissed me off about Martin was how much he was going in on Pam." She added that Pam was so effing beautiful and so fine, but growing up as a dark-skinned girl, she felt those jokes made it hard to fully appreciate her. On the show, Martin's character often made fun of Pam's hair, face, and style, calling her names like Beast or Scary J. Blige. That was I think another one of Pam's names was also Phony Braxton.
Yeah.
I can think of some others if you give me time. While it was played for laughs at the time, many now view those jokes as examples of colorism and bias against dark skin tones. Colorism is discrimination against people with darker complexions, especially within the Black community where lighter skin is often unfairly favored. Lennox's comments have sparked mixed reactions online. One Twitter user said the reaction people are having to Ari Lennox saying that about Martin is absolutely how it is to be a dark-skinned woman, pointing to the lasting impact such jokes have. Another user responded that Ari was bringing up a generation that doesn't understand real comedy before the censors, suggesting the jokes were part of the show's style. It's worth noting that Martin and Tashina worked together to develop the jokes, often roasting each other on and off screen. While the show remains a classic, this discussion shines a light on how Black women, especially those with darker skin, are portrayed in media and how those portrayals affect viewers. So I'm wondering whether we need to call Stephen A. Smith in on this topic before we give our takes, because I'm pretty sure he'd love to talk about this. But what do you think about what Ari Lennox had to say? You think the jokes about Pam on Martin was, they reinforced themes of colorism?
Yeah, I actually do. I put on my inner Stephen A. Smith and agree with Miss Ari. But hang on. So here's the thing, and it's kind of a theme going on today's show. I like that. Now, so yes, I just finished bagging on Stephen A. Smith about doing stuff like that. However, okay, there are things that do go on in the film world where they are portraying certain things versus others. And so one of the dynamics that I did realize that went on in a lot of Black content was, the red one was the attractive one, generally speaking. That tends to be what's going on. So for that show, the baseline was Gina was the desirable one and Pam was the non-desirable one.
More specifically, it was that Pam was the one who couldn't get a man, couldn't find a man,
and couldn't get a man. Yeah. So there's the dynamic was it was the underline. It was the underscore of what was going on everywhere else. Now I've seen other people's take on this, and they said that everybody was getting it on the show. Gina got it on the show from Martin. He gave it to Cole. He gave it to Tommy. He gave it to everybody. So when it came for Martin making jokes, Pam got it just like everybody else. So to me, I agree with that take in the sense that, yeah, it was fair game. It would make fun of Gina's the size of her head and other things. But the casting, I think the casting of the show is more of the how the colorist nature of that plays out, if you will. And much like how casting and other things, I would say, would do that in others. Like for the longest, in commercials, I would realize that there would be commercials where there's a dark-skinned father and a curly-haired, racially ambiguous woman. That's his woman. Not a Ari Lennox or Tanisha Arnold, whatever her name is. All right, so you would see those things go on often. Martin came out in the 90s where that was very much at its height. So when casting was going on, I'm sure the lighter skinned one won the role in the sense that she would be the desirable one. Same thing happened with Fresh Prince when they took out one mom and then they put in a lighter tone mom later, who couldn't act as good and wasn't as talented, but you know, she's fairer. Same thing happened on My Wife and Kids with that girl, the racially ambiguous girl that replaced the other girl. It's a theme that you would see that would happen in Hollywood. So again, yeah. So Martin fit the stereotype when it came to, in my opinion, you know, having the desirable woman be the more fair-skinned one. And so, yeah, Pam was getting the brunt of the things. But at the same time, as I mentioned, everybody was catching strays. And Pam eventually got a man. She ended up being with Tommy. But Tommy didn't have a job. So I guess we're back to square one with that. But all in all, I think that Ari does have a point. That was a conversation that would be had in my college days and stuff like that, when we were just observing things that we watched, where certain messages were being portrayed to our people. If it was a situation where it was more 50-50, it wouldn't be a conversation. But there's too many examples where I can either show you in a sitcom or a movie or something like that where somebody got swapped out for a more fair-skinned person or a racially ambiguous person or whatever, you know, take your pick. So it is a thing that you do see in Hollywood. So yeah, Martin fits the bill with that. So for Ari to point that out, I don't think she was reaching so much. I think that is a dynamic that happened in the 90s quite a bit. But what are your thoughts, man, on what Ari Lennox had to say, where Martin bagging on Pam all the time was actually a form of hateful self-hate colorism? What are your thoughts, man?
I mean, I guess, you know, if people want to have that stance, I'm not mad at it. You know, Weavy Wonder, that was another one. That was the cruise episode. Lynn Whitfield, she called Pam Weavy Wonder when she was trying to slide on Martin. That was another one, Weavy Wonder. It was so many of them, man. I got to think of them. But and I did look that up too. I just recall that. But yeah, that's fine. I mean, yeah, sign of the times. It is what it is. That's what was happening. So I'm not. You know, if you disagree with that point, I'm not gonna get mad at you. And if you believe that Ari Lennox is on to something, I'm also not gonna get mad at you. I'm kind of neutral when it comes to stuff like that. I kind of feel like generationally, all things are created as a result of the time in which they are created. White shows are like this too. There's a show called The King of Queens. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Yeah.
It's a white show. There's two black people on the show, but it's mostly a white show. And there are certain scenes that I remember watching where they're like making gay jokes that aired on TV at the point when the show was around. And now, many years later in syndication, I vividly remember those scenes, and I'll watch a rerun, and the scene just won't be there because they just got rid of it. They just got rid of it because the scene didn't age well. So, like, with white shows, colorism obviously. Well, hell, I don't know. I'm not white, so I don't want to be ignorant here. I don't know if there's a such thing as a form of colorism with white people. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's the same thing as it is with black entertainment or black people. So I would say with white shows, they had things going on, that are similar to that also didn't age well. And so now in retrospect, we're having these conversations about whether those shows were actually reinforcing certain negative tropes. And, like as in the example of that show, there was like gay jokes and stuff like that going on where it was just passe that we're just going to use gay people as the butt of every joke because being gay equates to something negative and or being gay equates to something being funny. So I feel like a lot of that stuff was a sign of the time. So I'm fine with it. I mean, if we're gonna go that far with Martin, then I feel like we need to talk about all of it because I feel like Tommy being the guy who never had a job, you could sort of insinuate that that was playing on low hanging fruits about black men who didn't want to work.
Yeah.
For real. Like if you want to, that's what I'm saying. Like it all applies. Is my point.
Yeah.
Like Cole being the moron, being the idiot, that could in that could you can infer that leans on certain low hanging fruits about black people or black men more specifically in their lower levels of IQ and intelligence juxtaposed to other people.
Yes.
Because Cole was the idiot on the show.
Correct.
So on a lot of these various pieces of entertainment, you had this stuff going on. I mean,
Correct.
even like there were like those shows from the 90s that were like teenage oriented. A lot of them typically had the blonde girl who was an idiot. She was a dumbass. Like that was also a stereotype. Blonde women have no intelligence. They're dumb, they're idiots, they're ditzy. All they're here for is looks. So is that colorism? Not necessarily, but it is some form of stereotypical typecasting that can work to the detriment of a certain group of people. Correct. In that instance, women who are blonde, because I'm pretty sure women who are blonde take exception to the idea that they're inherently stupid. So this kind of stuff was going on, bro. And honestly, I don't take anything away from what Ari Lennox said. She has a point. That probably is true, but there's aspects of that show. There was the cheap Latino landlord. You know what I'm saying? There was Stan was the cheap person who was shiesty running a radio station, but he was always doing shiesty stuff on the side. So these shows had all kinds of tropic themes with a lot of the characters and the way that they casted people. And honestly, from what I've seen, it wasn't just the black shows. The white shows did it too. So I feel like that kind of stuff was going on across the board. And if I'm being completely honest and transparent, those shows were funnier than the shows on now. So I challenge somebody to find the correlative link between, genuine humor and the fact that those shows lean on those low-hanging fruits. But those shows arguably were funnier than the shows that are out now. So you can take that for what it's worth, but I don't take anything from away from what she had to say. That kind of stuff was going on across the board. Was it reinforcing themes of colorism? Perhaps. But I'm the wrong person to ask because to me, watching Martin, it was very debatable who looked better between Pam and Gina.
It was a debate, yeah, for sure.
And it depending on which side of the bed you woke up in the morning, I had days where I woke up and I said Pam looks better. I had other days where I woke up and I said Gina looks better. It just depended. So and then I hear where Ari Lennox is coming from, but ain't no colorism on this side because I think she's a good looking chick. So it is what it is, bro. But I guess she has a point. I ain't tripping off that.
Yeah, and I say this, and point well taken that there's things that you can do. There's things that you can do in the 90s that you can't do now. Colorism, though, it'll still be around. that is a mainstay. You will see racially ambiguous on your TV screen. Those are people. They're people too. Okay, but you will see that for sure. And but what the flip side of that is that what it does for the psyche of the people that are watching that and aren't filtering or whatever, but then you'll get conversations or you'll hear black men talk amongst black men about how they're not dealing with any dark-skinned women.
So can I ask you a question? And this is a legit question. I'm not steering the conversation in any direction. Mm-hmm. We're still doing that. We still do that.
Yeah,
so
bro.
There's still a persistent idea that light skinned is just more attractive. That's still a thing.
Bro. Yeah, bro. There was this streamer. So he's a young guy. This streamer, they was dragging him through the mud about a month and a half ago about how he was saying, "Don't bring no dark skin. If she darker than me, bro, don't bring her around." You know, and he was just saying some nasty stuff, and then so yeah, there's people that do that, and then so there was a discussion that went on that beauty standards, that we had the beauty standards conversation earlier, and that beauty standards were being put into the minds of Americans based on what Hollywood's most sexiest actress looks like, blase splees, blase blahs. And what ended up happening is that there was a standard of beauty that was being held up more than others. This is the theory.
Mm-hmm.
And then so through constantly getting that filter of whatever, that she's the hottest, she's the hottest, she's the hottest, that becomes the standard of, that's what I want, the hot woman, and so the closer that you can get to that, you're doing your thing. So if she's dark skinned, she don't look nothing like Reese Witherspoon. Whatever they would say to that person. Sometimes they'll say the most sexiest one. I was like, this piece of thing here, you know what I'm saying? The lady at Kmart looked better than this. All right. But hey, that's what Hollywood Insider said. So, but so the closer you can get to that, the better. And if she's black and she's on this scale of really light skin, racially ambiguous, mixed, all this other stuff, until the threshold, until you can get the actual snow bunny of all snow bunnies, and you got it. You've got the picture of beauty that's been conditioned to you since you were a young person, and you just thought it was because I always watch Friends and I thought Phoebe was hot, But now it's a situation where I got my own Phoebe at home. But how did I get a Phoebe? Well, because you had that little thing going on with that actress or whatever, so and so. That's the theory of it. So constantly promoting these types of air quote colorist ideas, what it does is it puts the dark skinned women in a position where they have this complex now, or they got a Serena Williams and bleach their skin. And, it's a whole dynamic behind that. So, but to answer your question, yes, there's still black men out here that do that. There's still that have that complex that, the creamier, the better,
That's interesting.
Yeah, man. So it's a dynamic. So when did that begin? Was it the chicken or the egg type of situation? And I would argue that TV shows like Martin that play on the subconscious mind, do these whatever, it just over the years, it just become a thing of that's more desirable, that's more desirable. And
well, Pam had her moments on the show where she was getting desired, though. Like there was the episode where Keith Sweat was trying to holler. And there were other guys throughout the history of the show where she was getting play, but Gina was always the one who was consistent because she was with Martin, and that was the steady game.
Right.
I felt like more so than desirability, there was a subtle insinuation on keeping somebody, because even though Pam was always getting action, she was also routinely single.
Correct.
So I kind of felt like that was the more purposeful thing that was taking place, because it's like, well, why this is a good looking woman? Why in the real world there's no way a woman who looked as good as her would stay single for a long time. There's dudes hollering at that all the time. So that was the part that was like, okay, well, maybe there's a bit of an undertone behind that being the theme of her character. But it's interesting that still goes on, because that's weird to me.
Oh yeah,
I kind of feel like as long as you take care of yourself and keep yourself in shape, skin complexion is an afterthought. And I hear what you're saying. I want to believe that most people are reasonable and in the middle on that, but I could be. I tend to from time to time be wrong about stuff like this, and I could very well be preaching to the, I could very well be singing into the wind. But that's interesting though, especially now with the music and stuff. Like, like I feel like Megan Thee Stallion, for example, I wouldn't put her in the light skin category.
No, not at all.
But I'm pretty sure I feel like she's perceived to be very desirable. So, it is what it is. I think things have moved, but I hear what you're saying. I think the foundation for a lot of it is still set in stone. And I do agree with you. I don't think I think perceptions of attractiveness and even preferences are environmental. They're not innate. I think a lot of us are taught these things subconsciously. And from there, we sort of develop our preferences based upon that baseline inception of what comes into the brain. So, yeah, I hear you on that. But, I hear, it is what it is, right? Colorism is what it is, man. I mean, what are you going to do? I kind of feel like you're safe, basic rules, take care of yourself, keep yourself in shape, don't let yourself go, and everything else will work itself out. If you're trying to get your bones in the entertainment industry, good luck, because that's a beast that that monster is going to do what it does. Unfortunately, it is what it is.
Martin will forever be a classic. I knew that was going on. I'm on board with what she said because I already had that as a latent thought, but nothing's going to stop me from watching a clip and laughing my ass off when those two are ragging on each other. Like that's not going to change that. To me, I feel as though, much like I was talking about with sports, man, Martin unifies people, man. Yeah, man, us 80s and early 90s, man. That is an absolute classic. So yeah, man, shout out to Ari was that Lennox? Shout out to her. I've seen more of her lately since she's been a friend of the channel now. I never heard of her, but yeah, she be saying things. And shout out to everybody that love Martin, man. Hell of a show.
Hey, listen, man. Like I said before, that stuff was funny. So you go ahead and get rid of all of the negative stuff and still give me funny. If you can manage that, then I'm fine with it. But I don't know. Stuff is so watered down and lame and not funny now. Whitney Houston, that was another one. Whitney Houston. Damn, it was so many, bro. Bro, Martin used to Martin's not funny anymore. But man, that was like rolling off the chair funny. Watching that. But yeah, shouts out to Ari Lennox. In my book, I'll take you. Listen, if men want to turn you down off of colorism, come my way. Holler at us. JV Wins Conscious Approach. We got a spot right here for you.
Hey man, she's built the right way. I'll say that. She's the right way.
And last but not least, we are going to discuss Kyrie Irving speculating on Bill Gates's investments. So Bill Gates is the private owner of a large chunk of farmland across the United States. And Kyrie Irving on a recent Twitch stream was, giving his thoughts on how weird he finds it that Bill Gates owns so much farmland. And he even said that Bill Gates owns a lot of the water. I had never heard this before. The article that we are going to pull up here tries to do a little fact checking on some of the stuff that Kyrie said. But yeah, so Kyrie was on a Twitch stream and was just talking about Bill Gates and his questionable ownership of farmland and water, how weird he finds that to be. This says Kyrie Irving calls Bill Gates' land and water ownership weird. Kyrie Irving used a recent Twitch live stream to question Bill Gates' footprint in U.S. farmland and water rights. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the quotes. According to Benzinga, one person asked Grok, Elon Musk's AI chatbot, to weigh in, and it replied Gates owns around 270,000 acres of farmland, which is about 0.03% of total U.S. farmland. making him the largest private owner, but not a majority. He doesn't own most U.S. water rights. They are tied to land and regulated, not dominated by an individual. Another ex user argued that concentrating control of food and water could represent an outsized influence. So, what does Gates own? According to the Land Report 100, the Microsoft co-founder, holds 275,000 acres of U.S. farmland across at least 18 states, about 0.03% of America's 900 million farmland acres, making him the nation's largest private farmland owner, but far from a majority landholder. A 2022 deal in North Dakota drew attention when Red River Trust, linked to Gates, bought 2,100 acres from Campbell Farms for $13.5 million. The purchase was reviewed and approved by the state attorney general. On water, information does not support the claim that Gates owns a majority share of U.S. water. While some land transactions can include water rights, those rights are highly regulated and vary by state. There's no credible indication he controls a portion of national water supplies. Irving's recent comments subsequently resurfaced a 2022 Reddit AMA in which Gates wrote, "I own less than 1 in 4,000 of the farmland in the U.S. I have invested in these farms to make them more productive and create more jobs. There isn't some grand scheme involved. In fact, all these decisions are made by a professional investment team." So here is Kyrie Irving speculating about Bill Gates owning land and water.
The Gates family or Bill Gates owns a lot of the, land in North Dakota. I think that's weird. He owns the majority of the water in the United States. I think that's weird. Whatever. That, weird. This to each his own. This is for informational purpose only. But at the same time, it's just like when you go to the grocery store and you see certain products that are on there that, they spray with a.
That was about it there. But yeah, you get the point. So he was getting into other things. I guess he was going to talk about the food industry and spraying pesticides and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, what did you think about Kyrie's comments there? You're muted.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, the fact checks they're gonna come. But I think the more important part of this conversation is, more of the whys. He states that yes, that he's doing it to create more opportunities, and as an investment, his investment team came up with this idea, and one can argue that hey, people are always going to buy food, so why not invest in farmland? If you're going to have all of this farmland, you might want to, get your hands on some water somehow to protect your investment and all this other stuff. So, one can say all of those things, but I think more or less where Kyrie was coming from is in the sense that why does one man, no, he doesn't own the majority, but he is the one single, he owns the most. And why does a computer man own the most farmland in America? He doesn't just stop in America, by the way. He's well into Africa as well with buying farmlands and stuff like that. So why is Bill Gates so invested in buying farmlands? Why is he so invested in pandemics? Why is he so invested in AI? These are fair questions. I think somebody that is invested in all of those things and not being a tech giant, I think that's weird. If you're a tech giant, just worry about your tech stuff. So AI, I guess that's up your alley, but being farmland and getting involved in pandemics, I don't see the correlation. And but Bill Gates is very active when it comes to everything outside of computers, and everything about people. So he can say, Bill Gates, that is, he can say that, hey man, I'm just a businessman making business moves. But I agree with Kyrie in the sense that you might want to look into these guys that have that do what he does with their investments. That is so what's the word I want to say? Vocal about the state of the future. Because he doesn't come off. He comes off whenever Bill Gates is talking about stuff, he's talking about things in the sense that he's trying to look out for the best interest of mankind. However, everything that he's talking about that could be threatening mankind, he's like an owner on that stuff, or he's involved in it. So me personally, I don't trust Bill Gates myself. I don't know what he's up to. I think it is weird. But Kyrie has been on his Twitch streams, streaming like he doesn't have a job. Like he's not making millions of dollars.
Well, when you rehabbing, you got a whole lot of time to stream.
Hey man, hey, I guess he's got FU money now, because that's how he's talking. He is talking like he's got FU money at this point. So I'm wishing Kyrie the best, man, and try to stay out of harm's way. But I do agree with him that people need to look more into what Bill Gates is doing globally. It's not just in the United States, and try to piece together why a computer man is so involved with how humanity is going to be playing out. But what are your thoughts, man, on Kyrie Irving's calling out Bill Gates, saying that him being the largest shareholder in farmland in the United States is a bit weird. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, last time I checked, wealthy people aren't in the business of becoming less wealthy. There's no amount of money that you can give a rich person to make them feel like they're rich enough. All rich people want to do is get more money. And I do know that one of the few 100% appreciable assets in the world is land. There are very few things that you can invest in on this planet that are guaranteed to appreciate in value over time. One of those things is land. So just purely from the standpoint of being able to secure his generational wealth literally into perpetuity, to me, it makes sense that he would buy farmland, because land is literally one of the only things in the world that cannot depreciate no matter what happens. I don't care what happens with AI. I don't care what happens with pandemics. I don't care what happens with natural disasters. I don't care what happens with technology. I don't care what happens with currency. I don't care what happens with the world economy. If any of those things shift and change over time, it is not going to impact the fact that land is a guaranteed appreciable asset. So speaking purely from a speaking purely from a business point of view, he's doing what the rest of these wealthy people do. As far as I'm concerned, they're all up to something. And the thing that they're up to is retaining as much of their wealth as possible and growing their wealth as much as humanly possible. Mark Zuckerberg built a compound in Hawaii on a whole bunch of land that he owned, that he paid for. And there was a whole lot of hoopla. There was a lot of people wondering why he was doing this. Why is this dude over in Hawaii building this huge underground bunker? Does he know something we don't? What's coming? Is there something up? And thus, up to this point, we haven't heard anything, but the guy still has this huge underground bunker over in Hawaii. And the thing is something coming? Maybe. Is something not coming? Maybe. But I do know one thing. The guy owns the land that thing is on. It will continue to appreciate over time. And I don't know how involved he is in the day-to-day with Meta, but one thing that these wealthy people do is want to get more wealthy. One thing that I'm never going to buy is that they are doing these things purely out of benevolence. Like, oh, I care about the future of humanity, and everything that I do is with the intent to progress mankind forward and look out for everybody. I don't believe that. I believe that at best, that's a secondary motivation to their primary motivation, which is becoming ungodly wealthy. That's what I think these people care about. Even I don't give a damn how much they donate to charity. I don't care how much philanthropy they're involved in. They can write that stuff off so that they're not paying it on taxes. These people want to become as wealthy as humanly possible, Bill Gates included. I don't give a damn what he does with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and all of that other stuff, whatever. This guy wants to be as human. This guy wants to be able to be as wealthy as possible, literally until an asteroid comes and wipes us all out. Like until the day that that happens, he wants to be able to be generationally wealthy and pass that on to future generations in his bloodline. That's what these people care about, even if it comes at the expense of people. And like this notion that he's building this to create more jobs and all of that kind of stuff. I believe that. I do believe that. And here's why. Because the more regular jobs that you create for people to be laborers in, the more you're going to funnel people into the slavery system that lines the pockets of all the people at the top. See, people in Bill Gates' position and Mark Zuckerberg's position, the one thing that they need more than their wealth is they need labor. They need labor. Without labor, they can't continue to be where they are. And so if he can have however many hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland that he has in order to till land, in order to, be able to, create jobs for people. Yeah, that sounds like a nice thing to say, but really all you're doing is funneling people into labor, perpetual labor. Modern day enslavement is what I call it. Because that's what corporations need is more labor. I remember learning in elementary school that Earth's most important natural resource is people. It isn't oxygen or trees or concrete or animals. That was one of the main things that I learned in basic science class in elementary school, that the world's most important natural resource is humans, people. And humans, as the world's most important natural resource, are also most needed by people in Bill Gates' position because they can't continue to do what they do if not for labor. So I do believe this idea that part of this thing that he's invested in with his land portfolio. I don't know about the water, so I'm not going to speak on that. But when it comes to the land portfolio, I do believe that creating jobs is a part of that. I also think that it's a spin to make it from a PR standpoint seem positive. Yeah, we want to give people more jobs. To what end? What does that really do for anybody? Mm-hmm. I don't care how many different Amazon warehouses you built. These people are still underpaid. You still can't afford a livelihood on a single income if you work in an Amazon warehouse. So what good is that really? And I don't care what jobs are created via Bill Gates's ownership of all of this farmland. None of those jobs are going to be able to afford individuals with the ability to be able to earn a livelihood that enables them to live completely autonomously and on their own. Not in this economy with the standard of living the way it is. So all this is just more labor opportunities for more bigwigs to become more perpetually wealthy over time. So is it suspicious? Not to me, because I know what the end game is per se. But is it as benevolent as individuals in Bill Gates' position would have it seem? In my opinion, no. This is just more business as usual.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I would just say this: Bill Gates has a lot of stuff tied to his name where people just generally don't trust the man. He'll go on a TED Talk and talk about the Earth population is a little too high. He'll say other things about other stuff where it's like, what are you really out here doing, man? Aren't you just a Microsoft guy? Why do you care about this or that, all these things.
Because these people are narcissistic beyond measure. They really believe that their success in life has given them this superiority complex in which they believe that it is a part of their duty to do what's best for humanity.
Correct.
He believes that it's part of his job to push us forward as if he knows what's best.
Right.
Musk does the same thing.
Mhm.
Zuckerberg, all these guys do the same thing. They do the same thing.
Mhm.
They just believe that it's a part of their mandate in life to do these things.
Correct. And in the midst of them doing it, they have a tendency to do things that are a little bit weird and doesn't seem to be helping society. It doesn't seem to be helping. GMOs aren't good for you. I think the jury's out on that. But here we are with GMOs, for instance. Because there was something a couple years ago where Bill Gates has an avocado out there. It's called like Real Peel or something like that, something weird. And I forgot what was the story about that, but it was like, I don't want a Bill Gates avocado. I don't want a Bill Gates apple. I don't want anything from a Bill Gates farm personally. Personally, I don't want one. I'm pretty sure I've had some or, whatever, but I'm not looking to go do that. Me personally. So I hear your point that these guys have a complex, and their idea of looking out for humanity is looking out for their perpetual wealth. And whether that's actual physical, money, or having lots of land and lots of this and securing that generational wealth, blah, 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 or that name, legacy, or whatever it is that these guys are looking for. It's at all costs that they will have that. And if there's people that gotta go by the wayside, so be it. And that's the part about it where it's like, I agree with you that, well, you can't stop them from doing it. But I do think it is interesting to watch these guys that do have that complex. Because there's guys out there that are wealthy that aren't getting weird. So I think it does behoove people to know that these people exist, that have this superior complex, that move in these particular ways, and just monitor and watch them, because they'll have us watching something else that doesn't matter.
Like chat bots and AI.
Yeah, and so I'd rather keep my eyes on these guys to see what they're up to, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, and the more that these guys acquire, it seems to be the less with humanity they're in touch with, even though they claim that everything they do is for humanity.
That's the irony.
Yeah. So I would just say watch these guys closely, and Kyrie saying it out of all people, and I'm not surprised Kyrie said it, but I am surprised that he said it because this guy, he's in circles with people. So I'd be concerned for people who be talking like that and got a report somewhere later. But hey man, more power to Kyrie, more power to Kyrie. I don't know about Bill Gates got all the power he needs, I'd say. So more power to Kyrie, I think.
He doesn't really, he's not really involved in the day-to-day at Microsoft. So
yeah,
I guess the man needs something to do with his time. Speaking of Bill Gates, but whatever. These people just, my whole thing is like, stop thinking, and I'm not saying that people do this, although I'm pretty sure that there are people who do this, but I hope that most of us don't think that these individuals are not thinking of themselves first.
Correct.
like they're thinking about themselves first. So long as it continues to add to whatever portfolio that they needed to add it to, all the other ancillary benefits are okay. But as nice of a guy as Bill Gates presents himself to be, the dude cares about his ends. Trust me. You don't get to that point where you're that wealthy if you don't. So, you know, yeah, absolute power corrupts absolutely for real. And all of these people are out for themselves first and foremost. So, I actually had to look up a list because I couldn't let it go. Aretha Franklin, that was another one. Aretha Franklin. I'm surprised I couldn't remember that one. Nappy Longstocking.
Yes.
Gladys Fright. That's a good one. Scary at Tubman. Oh man. Martin was one of a kind, bro. Martin was one of a kind.
Yeah, I might watch a couple episodes tonight. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it, folks. We are signing off. JB Wins, Dogon SS. Another fantastic stream in the books. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned if you're watching via live stream. If not, thank you for watching. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think about the commentary in this or any other video. Hit that like button. And if you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. We just want to be able to have some of this content reach more people on these wacky algorithms that we have absolutely no control over. Catch me on Instagram at JVWins, JVWINS. Catch Conscious Approach on both Instagram and TikTok at Con Approach, CONAPPROACH. And once again, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Go ahead and stream us because we can be streamed nowadays, folks. Y'all ain't know.
That's right.
Otherwise, don't be a group thinker. Have a mind of your own. Think for yourself, as I always like to say. Shouts out to everybody in the community. Thank you very much for watching. We appreciate your patronage, and we'll see you on the next video.
And the name is Dogon SS. And you can find me on Instagram at Dogon_SS, on YouTube, DraftKings, MySpace, Facebook, Meta X. Hey man, there's a social media platform. Dogon_SS is out there. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow, and all that good jazz. All right. And as I always say, guys, we greatly appreciate y'all for watching, sharing, okay, hitting that like button, and consciously leaving comments, because honestly, we couldn't do this without all of y'all's. So shouts out to y'all as well. And as I say every pod, don't be too high, don't be too low. Keep it calm, keep it chill, keep it player. And don't let anybody get you off your pivot. So until the next episode, I got more brains than Robert Ory. We'll catch y'all next time. Yeah.
That's right. That is right. We'll see y'all later, folks. We are out. Peace.
Peace. Go Canes. We here, y'all. We here. Go Canes. Yeah. Hey, what